All right, let's sculpt a female head. So here I'm going to do things a bit differently. Instead of sculpting the whole head starting with only one sphere, like we did with the male head, here I will sculpt different parts of the head starting with different spheres, and then we'll merge them later on. I think this is a cool way to learn different methods of sculpting. There are advantages and disadvantages of using this method. For starters, by sculpting things separately, you have more freedom in easily changing proportions, moving things around and all of that. But the disadvantage is that it's a bit harder to see how they go together when they're not really merged together and how they connect together. So we're going to have to work around that. And once we have everything positioned the way we want, we can then merge things and clean things up. So it's an interesting way to sculpt. It's a different way. It could be helpful in many cases. So it's good to see a lot of different ways to sculpt, which is why I'm going to show you how to do that sculpting this female head. Just here's a little tip when you're sculpting this way, when you're sculpting separately. For example, when you sculpt the head separately from the ears, separately from the nose, the eyes, and all of that, you want to make sure to remove outline because let me just show you why removing outline is better. So here is two spheres with an outline. It will be more visible when you're sculpting a character, but basically here, this line, it makes it look separate and it's harder to visualize how it would look like together when it's merged. So by removing outline, you can kind of see what it looks like together. So it's a bit easier to visualize things without outline on over here. So just make sure to remove outline when you're using this method. All right, so I will delete the sphere and just go back over here and let's take a look at the scene. So with this scene, you have a female head reference on the left that I sculpted. You can open this. So right now we're taking a look at number 2. Just hide this one and then unhide number 1. This is where the hair is still separate. So we can hide the hair over here and see the female head with her skull. This will be easier to use as a reference when you're sculpting the head. Perfect. Okay, let's start. So I'm going to go to the sphere over here, go to sculpt mode, and I'll start shaping the head over here. So I'm going to click on this so that we can see the brushes, and I'll switch to the grab brush, and then I will form the head. So when you're sculpting at first, actually, I need to make sure I have symmetry on, so I'll click on X over here. So anyways, when you're sculpting, make sure you're ignoring the details of the face at first. Just look at the shape of the head, the outline. All right, so remember a female character, just like I've explained, have narrower shapes, smoother shapes, smaller shapes, generally speaking. So we want to make sure to try and get that right away. So for example, the chin would be narrow, unlike the male character. The jaw as well, it's a bit more roundish, like that. Let's make the head a bit narrower over here. And then to the side, again, you can use this as reference. So from the side over here, let's make the jaw. So the jaw is not as sharp as the male head. Okay, it's a bit more round, like that. Perfect. And of course, pay attention to every other part, not just the lower part. So let's move the skull around a bit, maybe make this a bit flatter. And this over here, this plane change, like that. We need to work it. Okay, perfect. And maybe make this part a bit smaller over here. I'm going to push it backwards. And the jaw seems to be a bit too long, but we will see later on. All right, perfect. And I will actually go to the top over here and work the form of the skull. So don't forget, work all sides. So here it will be a bit narrow compared to the middle part, and then it will turn around. So it has a nice round shape. Again, that depends on the person and their skull. But yeah, here I'm going to try to make it a bit more round. So I'm going to pull this part here down like this. And I will push in this area for the temple, but I'll be more subtle with it than with the male sculpt. Okay. So I think that's a good start. Let's take a look over here. And yeah, that's a good start. We can move on to the next shape. So here we will sculpt things separately again from the start, and then we'll merge them later. So we can go back to object mode, Shift S, cursor to world origin, Shift A, mesh, and UV sphere. And then I'll use Shift and click on the face, Control L, link materials to have the same color over here. And then I will go to edit mode and put this downwards. Scale it down a bit like that, and then I will scale it on the Z-axis to make it a bit longer, like that, for the neck. Okay? Let me just make sure to turn on symmetry when I have this new sphere. So you're going to have to turn on symmetry every time. And then I will push this actually backwards because, again, the neck is in this part over here, not here. Be careful with that. All right, so I'm going to put it right here. And then I will go to sculpt mode and start sculpting. Okay, so here we can adjust the shape to follow the head over here. And maybe make this part a bit shorter. So we're just sculpting the start of the neck. We don't really need to sculpt the rest. We're focused with the head. Also make sure to make it a bit round. Right now it's not round. It's too straight over here. So turn around and kind of move it around to get this nice round shape. Beautiful. Okay, make sure to keep the neck a bit narrow compared to the male. All right, we can adjust the shapes later on, and if we need to adjust the shape of the face, of course, we're going to have to adjust the shape of the neck as well and the other parts. So I'm going to switch back to the head. So with Alt-Q, I can just switch over here in sculpt mode and just work this area over here. So whenever I see an area that I don't like, I'll just try to quickly fix that. So I'm going to push this inwards a bit like that. Okay, perfect. And continue over here. So I'm going to take the neck, just move it a little. And next we can create the ears. So the ears, well, we're going to have to do the same thing with the neck. Just it'll be slightly different. So Shift A, or just make sure you have the cursor in the middle. So Shift S, cursor to world origin, you get the point. But then Shift A, UV sphere, shift over here, click on the face, Control L, link materials, click on this again, go to edit mode, and then we can put it to the side over here. But this time we need to use a mirror. So we can either use a mirror modifier over here at start and then apply it later on, or just simply use symmetrize when you're sculpting. So it's a little different because with the mirror modifier, let me just explain quickly. So if I add a mirror modifier, I can go to edit mode and move it around, both of them together, to adjust the shape over here. With symmetrize, you can't really do that, I think. So let me just double check here. I'm going to duplicate it over here. I'm going to go and remove the mirror and then go to X over here, symmetrize. Whoops. I'm going to have to make sure to change the direction. So make sure to change this to this one over here so that the symmetrize goes from here to here, not the other way around. So symmetrize, I'll turn on the X symmetry. So if I ever need to move it to the left, I can do so with the sculpt mode. But if I try to do it with edit mode, actually that works. All right, so no problem. We can use both methods for now, I guess. Oh, that's why. Okay. So yeah, with the new Blender versions, we can turn on X over here and move it around. Okay, that's fine. So you can actually use either method. So I'm going to stick with symmetrize. Okay. So go to sculpt mode and then X over here. Change this from this one to this one and then symmetrize. And this way we can start sculpting the ears. All right. So for the ears, I'll just push it inwards like this and keep it around the middle of the head, like this, where the bottom of the ear lines up with the bottom of the nose and the top of the ear over here lines up around the eye line and the eyebrows over here. All right. And of course, on the side, the ear line would be around the middle of the skull. So let's do that. All right. And of course, I can switch to the head and just adjust this, just push it inwards a bit like this. But it's a bit too early to adjust the head. So let's just stick to the ears and try to shape it. So when you're sculpting separately, we tend to forget to actually create good shapes. I find that to be the case usually. So just make sure you're sculpting the shape and paying attention to the width of the shape and all of that and the thickness. So yeah, I'm just gonna push in this part for this part over here of the ear. Okay, like that. And from the bottom over here, I'm gonna get it closer to the face for the earlobes over here. All right, and I'm gonna push this part outwards. Again, I'm not necessarily following the same design over here. We're just using similar proportions. So you can choose to sculpt exactly the same thing and try to get the same result, or you can be a bit open with your artistic choices on how to go on about sculpting your female character. All right, so here that looks okay for now. So I'm gonna go back to the head and push it inwards a bit to give it more space over here for this part, like that. Okay, and maybe just fix it a bit from the side, make it a bit slanted. Don't forget the ear is not straight from here, it's a bit slanted like that. All right, perfect. And at this poly count, this is more than fine. We don't have to push it any further. So let's go ahead and add more details for the face so that we can start adding different features of the face. So I'm gonna switch to the face over here and then use, let's see, I'm gonna go to remesh, put this at 0.08, Control R, perfect. And we can start carving. So I'm gonna switch to the sculpt draw brush, and with Control, I can carve this area, so the eye area. And I'll actually increase the number here. I'm gonna put it at 0.07, Control R. Let me see, maybe even lower. 0.06 is gonna be fine. All right, 0.06, it's still low enough. We can easily manipulate the shapes. So here I will just push this part backwards like that. Take a look from the bottom, and I'm gonna make sure to work this area as well. We wanna make it round and go backwards over here. Of course, there's this plane change because of the tempo, as you can see. Okay, and for a female head, of course, this area is usually a bit more round than a male head. So I'm gonna make it round, but right now it's going outwards. So I'm gonna just push it backwards a bit over here and just get the shape to work nicely. All right. Perfect. So I'm gonna just lower this part a bit. All right. And this part as well, as if we're sculpting a skull. So the orbit of the skull. Okay. So here, the tempo will be around over here. So I'm gonna just push this part in ever so slightly. So it would be around over here in this case, like that. All right. And let's see, maybe I'll push this part backwards like this. Okay. Perfect. So I think we can try and add the nose now, of course, separately. Let me just push this part back a bit like that. And now we can add the nose. So for the nose, we're going to go to object mode, Shift A, mesh UV sphere. Of course, make sure the cursor is in the middle, and then I'll link the materials over here with Control L, and then I'll go over here, scale it, and move it forward on the Y axis, like that. And then I will go to symmetry, turn that on, and start sculpting. So I'm gonna go to sculpt mode, and just move this and shape it for the nose. All right, so for a female, the nose would be a bit curvy over here. Again, generally speaking, that is not always the case, of course. It's just a general guideline. All right, so I'm gonna pull out this lower part. Okay, and of course, don't forget the wing of the nose goes backwards over here, as you can see. So we need to go back to the face over here with Alt Q and move this backwards a bit. Okay. So we need to pay attention to the form of the face over here, especially since we're working separately right now. We need to work more than one part at the same time, but you're gonna see that it's just easier to manipulate the proportions and the shapes that way. All right, perfect. So we have the nose set out over here. Now we're gonna go to object mode and add the mouth. So maybe we can sculpt the upper and lower lips separately. Let's try to do that. So I'm gonna create a new UV sphere. Actually, you don't really have to create a new UV sphere every time. If you wanna go faster, just duplicate one of the items over here that you have. So Shift D, and then just right click to put it back to where it was. I'm going to move it downwards like this, or just go to edit mode, move it downwards. I can scale it a bit on the Z axis, and then I'll go to sculpt mode over here, and I'll just shape it this way. All right, I can smooth it, move it around, and create the upper lips. All right, so I'm gonna move this over here like that. And I'm gonna think of the form of the upper lips where, of course, over here it's a bit straight and then it goes round and goes backwards to around where the eye line is. And of course, you can take a look at the reference to kind of see what I'm talking about. So it goes forward here from the nose like that, and then it goes downwards like this. I'm gonna push this downwards, this upwards like that. Perfect. Okay, so now I'll go back to object mode, Shift D this, right click, and then move it downwards, or just go to edit mode, move it downwards, and then I'll go to sculpt mode and just sculpt this. So I'll smooth it out, and I'll just move the lower part for the lower lips. All right, so I'd like to make her lips thicker than we did with the male. It'll make her look a bit more feminine. All right, so I might exaggerate it a bit, and I'll back down if I need to and dial it down later on. So with Alt Q, again, don't forget you can switch easily between different sculpts without having to switch back to object mode. So it makes sculpting this way easier, because otherwise it would take time to switch between modes every time if you are working with more than one object. All right, so here this is looking fine. We can always add more separate parts, for example, the chin and all. I don't want to overdo it. So for now, let's sculpt the chin directly over here. So to do that, I will, let's see, I will add, no, actually I won't increase the poly count yet. Let's just continue and add the eyes and all of that. So for the eyes, we will add a sphere for the eyeballs, and then we'll add the eyelids separately. So Shift A, mesh, UV sphere. And then I'll use Shift, click on this, Control L, materials. And then for this, I'll go to edit mode, rotate it 90 degrees on the X axis like that. And then I'll move it over here and put it somewhere in the middle of the head like this. All right, perfect. Let me just adjust my seat over here. So it's going to be approximative over here. We'll adjust the position of the eyes later on. We can always go to this mode over here to see where it is in the head, where it sits. All right, that's fine for now. I think we're going to have to adjust it. So make sure you position the eyes close to the root of the nose over here, to the nasion. So not too far backwards, but not too much forwards either. Okay, let's go over here and just add a mirror modifier like that. And we can start sculpting. Okay, so here we will add the eyelids. So to do so, instead of taking the mouth, I can take the ear since it's already separate like this. Or I can take the mouth, go to edit mode and move it to the right. It's the same thing. So let's just take the mouth since it's closer. So Shift D, right click, and then go to edit mode and move it to the right. Just make sure to remove X over here so that you can do it. So move it to the right, place it above the eyes, like that, and then turn X again and go to, whoops, is it lagging? No, it's not. Okay, go to sculpt mode and click on this, symmetrize. There you go, perfect. Okay, so now we can sculpt the eyelids. Okay, so this part is gonna be a bit tricky. We don't have enough details on the face over here. We're gonna have to pull this backwards for the face. So I just switched to the face with Alt Q to kind of modify this so that we can work with the eyelids. So whenever I switch, when you see this color, that means I used Alt Q as the hotkey to switch between two objects. All right, so here with the eyelids, I will move it around and just create the upper one over here. I might give her more of a cat eye compared to the male character. So the outer corner here will be raised up like this one compared to the middle corner. So it'll be raised up a bit more than the usual. I find that to look a bit more feminine. It's not always the case. All right, so you can see it's a bit rough right now. Let's continue and we'll see where this goes. So Shift D, right click, go to edit mode, put it downwards over here, go to sculpt mode, and then we can continue working on the lower eyelids. All right, we don't have enough details here to work this, so we will probably increase the level of detail. So when you're working with a small object, you might have to increase or actually decrease the voxel size quite a lot so that you can get some details. So I think it's 0.02 should be fine here. It wouldn't be overkill, as you can see. So I only have around 2,000 faces by doing that. If I did that to the face, then it'll be a lot more. All right, so just a little tip for you there. So I have a problem with the smooth brush. I will go to the smooth brush over here and then decrease the strength to 0.3 and go back to the draw brush over here or to the grab brush just to move things around. So I'm still keeping things rough. So the eyelids, it'll basically look like this. So the top one will be like that and the bottom one will be like that. All right, let me just remove the annotations over here. Okay, whoops, perfect. So I will grab this area in sculpt mode and just move it backwards to get that shape I just talked about. Like that. And then for the lower eyelids, I'm paying attention again to the edge loops over here. Let me just grab some water. Whoops, my mouth was getting a bit dry over there. So anyways, I will move this backwards and yeah, so I'm paying attention to the edge loops over here and I'm imagining the iris being somewhere around over here. All right, so I'm trying to keep this in the middle and I will raise this part. So again, I'm gonna do a shape like this where this goes upwards to the iris and then it goes like that. There's an angle break over here, and for the lower part, it will go like this. So I'm gonna start like that, and I'll shape her eyes later on if I wanna change the style. So you can see I'm taking it easy, no rush. I'm trying to enjoy the process. Well, I'm not really trying to, I am enjoying the process. And yeah, just take it easy and just enjoy it. Let's go to remesh. I will decrease it to 0.02 for the upper eyelids and remesh with Ctrl R. And then of course, I will continue to work the eyelids. Now, don't forget, you have to work the thickness of things when you're doing this as well. So here it's too thick, so I'm gonna have to push it backwards, as you can see. And yeah, it's too thick on the top as well. So I can use the sculpt draw brush to kind of carve in this area and make it look more like eyelids. All right. Okay, and then I'll move it. Actually, it's too much backwards here, so I'm gonna have to move it a bit forwards here and put it somewhere over here. All right, so it's a bit hard to visualize things again when you're working this way. This is the disadvantage of this method. But let me just, there you go. I had to adjust my seat again, but it has its advantages. So you definitely can try more than one method of sculpting. And I personally like to switch between a lot of different methods I use to sculpt. It keeps things fresh and each method is its own thing. You learn different things. Yeah. But I find this method to probably be a bit more beginner friendly. But that really depends. So I'm gonna work here. I'm gonna add this part separately. To do so, I will go to object mode, duplicate this, go to edit mode, grab the whole thing and move it upwards here. And then I'll go to sculpt mode and work this area over here. So this part right there. All right. Let me just remove the annotations and then I can continue to sculpt this area. All right, so I will just slowly work the form over here. So you can create separate parts, as many as you want. That's really up to you. And with Alt-Q, since we can switch easily between different objects, we won't have any issues. We can do that fast. Again, the challenge would be making things work together. All right. So I'm going to keep it like this for now. And I'll go over here and work this area a bit. Let's see, maybe the mouth. So here we need to make it a bit more round. So I'd like to increase the detail size of the head. I'm thinking of maybe creating parts of the ears separately as well, just so that you can see a bit more of this method. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go to the ears over here. I'm going to duplicate it and then go to edit mode and just scale it and move it outwards a bit. Whoops, before I do that, I'll need to remove X over here. So I'm going to scale it and just move it here like that. All right. And then I'll go to sculpt mode. Now, since I already moved this one over here, I will just go ahead and do another symmetrize so that we have it on the other side. And here I will just basically create this Y part, this one over here. All right, so we're gonna have to remove from this ear to do it properly. Let me just go over here to remesh 0.02. I'll remesh this so that we have a bit more. It's really thin, so when you have an object that's really thin like this, if you try to sculpt it, for example, with clay strips, you're gonna have issues on the other side. So you can make it thicker by simply using the inflate brush, and it will make it thicker from all the sides, like that. So I'm gonna make it thicker, Control R, and now we have a bit more form. Okay, so I'm gonna switch to this one over here. Actually, I'm gonna go back to object mode and hide this with H. So I'll switch to this, I'll go to sculpt mode, and I'll pull in this part so that we have space to create this area. All right, so I'm gonna do that. It's as if this is now the C area over here, okay? So let's do that. Perfect, and then I'll go to remesh, 0.02, Control R, and I'll add some thickness over here with the sculpt draw brush, like that. And maybe create the earlobes here a bit. Okay, perfect. And now we will go back to object mode, Alt-H. It will unhide the hair as well. You can just click on this and hide it. And then I'll go back to this one and create that Y shape. All right. Perfect. And we will go to remesh. No, it's fine. We already have it at 0.02. I can just do another remesh over here since I'm moving it too much around and stretching out the polygons. I can definitely do that to kind of improve the topology while I'm sculpting. Okay. So if it's too challenging to create this part separately for you, you can just sculpt the ears normally without creating separate parts. But again, I just wanted to show you a different method here. So I'm kind of just doing more of that over here. So not just with the face, but maybe like the ears. So that you can see what it would look like or how you would manage these shapes when you're doing it separately. Okay, perfect. So here I will create, let's see, should I create another part separately? We can create this maybe separately over here. So I'm just gonna Shift D, go to edit mode, and then put it over here. Like that. I'm gonna go to sculpt mode. Now, since I moved it in edit mode, I'm gonna have to go to X over here and symmetrize. And I'm gonna have to go back to this one. Actually, I didn't have symmetry here, so I'm gonna turn this on and symmetrize over here as well. Okay, perfect. So I'll just continue to create this shape like that. So I'm smoothing it out. I'm putting it over here. I'm just moving it with the grab brush, and then I can use the inflate brush like that, and then Control R, and we have a shape that we can work with. So you can see it's definitely a fun method It takes some getting used to, but you can quickly create shapes like that. All right. And then I'll take this one and I'll use K for the snake hook. And then I'll just pull out this area and then Control R to remesh again and push it inwards, of course, because this goes inwards, as you can see. All right, so you have to always pay attention to the form when you're sculpting. Observe what you're sculpting and create the form properly. All right, so I'm gonna Control R this one over here for remesh and continue to work this area. I'll create this dent over here like that. So I'm just gonna use Control to remove this area from here, and I'll just push this inwards like that. And then I'll switch to this one over here and just remove this little part here, just smooth it out. There you go, perfect. Okay, I'm gonna go back to this one and continue with this Y shape. So you can see how this Y shape goes over to here, it goes upwards out here. It bulges outwards just a bit, like that. So Control R to remesh again. I'll just bulge it out here a bit. And I will try to imagine the shape over here. Okay, perfect. So now we have some parts for the ears. Let's see. The last part I can add is this area over here. So I'm going to go to the head. I'm going to push it inwards like that to have some space over here. And I don't have to create another part over here. I already have it from the Y over here. As you can see, this part. So I'll just keep this one. That's fine. There you go. And that's the block out of the ear. So again, we're working with primitive shapes and just creating the block out at this stage. Okay, so I'd like to work the mouth a bit. I'm going to go over here and I will create this round area over here. So I'm going to use the grab brush and just move things around. You don't have to be fancy with brushes. You can use simple brushes like that, like the grab brush. It's quite a useful brush. So I'm going to try to make it a bit round over here like that. And I'll take the mouth over here and just add some form for this round part. Okay, and I'll take the lower lip like that. So I'm hesitating between making the upper lips only the lips without this part, or just keeping it that way. I'll keep it that way for now. So I'm going to take the lower lip and I will, let's see, no, actually I'll take the face and then I'll add more details because it's getting a bit hard to work with as it is right now. So I'm going to go to remesh 0.04, Control R, and then I will just slightly add some volume to the chin over here. Don't forget, it protrudes outwards. All right, so I'm going to pull out this lower part. All right, like this. Okay. All right, cool. Let me just put that here. All right, so looking at the face right now, I want to adjust the proportions, but I just remember something. So earlier I talked about whether you can add a mirror modifier when sculpting with this method or using symmetrize, and that it should be different. But when I tested it out in front of you, it seemed to be the same, but it's not the same. So let's take an example over here. Let's say I want to adjust these two eyelids and this part over here and move them around. So going to sculpt mode and doing each one is going to take a lot of time. That's not the point of using this method. So instead you'd go to edit mode and grab everything and move it around. The problem here is that if I try to do it right now, you're going to see that it's acting weird. So what's happening is that when you're using remesh, the symmetry is not 100% perfect. So for example, if I take this, I go to edit mode, you can see it's not perfect. So I'll have to symmetrize again. Let me just go to sculpt mode, click on this, symmetrize again, and you can see it changed a bit. So now it will work. So that's why using a mirror modifier at an early stage of sculpting like this, when you're using this method, is more beneficial because you won't have to deal with this. The thing with the mirror modifier, it will only work, of course, on objects that are separated. So it won't work on something like the nose. You're going to have to use symmetrize for this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually do that. I'll get rid of the left parts. So I'm just going to grab Shift and grab all these parts over here like that. I'm going to go to edit mode and then Shift Z to go to wireframe mode. And I'll just grab everything on the left over here, X and delete. And then I'll go to, actually, I missed one part. So let me just grab this and Shift Z, X, delete, Shift Z again. Perfect. Okay, so now I can add a mirror modifier. So just add a mirror modifier to one of these objects, like this one, and then select the other ones, and select this one last, and then Control L, link, let me see, copy modifiers. Perfect. So now all of them have the mirror modifier. So now if I want to adjust anything, for example, if I want to adjust all of these and move them around, I can go to edit mode, grab everything with A and move them around, and I can quickly adjust the proportions this way. All right, so with that done, let me go ahead and adjust the proportions. So the head right now is looking too long. So for a female character, generally it would be a bit shorter. So I'm just going to adjust these angles and the length over here, make the jaw here a bit thinner. And again, just pay attention to the angles over here, the degree of the angles, and it will help you a lot when working with reference. See, that looks already a lot better. But again, when working with a lot of elements like this, sometimes it's hard to visualize things together. So this is kind of the challenge of using a method like this. So it's a trade-off. All right, so from the side, it definitely looks weird, probably from the lips going outwards like that. So I'm gonna take this lip over here and just clean it up a bit. And then I'll take this part and just push it outwards here a bit, like this. Maybe smooth things out here. And make this part go inwards a bit, like that. So I'm just gonna push this whole part inwards to make the jaw a bit more subtle and more feminine. All right, that looks good. Here I will push this up, so this part of the neck. And I will push this area backwards. Don't forget, it goes like this and then goes backwards like that. Right, so again, you can use your fingers, put it on your face and move around your face to kind of see how the form goes. So I'm going to move it backwards a bit like that and slightly push the zygomatic process here outwards, the area over here. And I'll also make the cheeks a bit more prominent or rounder. So I want to decrease the strength of the sculpt draw brush to 0.2 so that it's a bit more subtle. And you don't want to make huge changes to female characters. They're a lot more subtle with their skin, and things are usually looking smoother. Usually, of course. All right, so that's one of the challenging parts of sculpting a female character, a female head, compared to the male head, is that you have to be a lot more subtle with changes, but still it shouldn't look flat. So you need to add form, but you need to be very, very smart about it. All right, so far that's looking good. She looks a lot more feminine right now. I will take the neck here and just adjust the form here a bit. And try to make it a bit thinner. Like that. All right, that's cool. Maybe make the neck a bit shorter. Like that. And make the throat a bit flatter. All right, cool. Okay, don't taper down the neck. I see that quite often. Beginners taper and get too much. It has a stylized effect maybe, but generally speaking, that's not really how it looks like. From the front, it looks a bit more straight. It doesn't taper. Let's see. Because if you do that, then it just looks weird. All right, I'm just taking a look at the neck. The neck looks fine for now. I will go ahead to the side over here and work the profile a bit. I feel like this area can be improved. So for this area here, I'm going to push it backwards a bit. Like that. No, actually, I'm going to move it forwards a bit as if it's connecting to the nose. Again, this is the challenging part. You have to kind of think how the form goes together. All right, so I'm going to keep the nose over here. I'll actually push this backwards to have some space for the wing of the nose over here. I'll round this area a bit more for the wing of the nose. And then I will use 5 or just click on this to go to orthographic view. I just want to see how this looks like without perspective. Maybe push this backwards a bit. And the chin as well, I'm going to push it backwards, make it a bit more pointy since it's a female character. So not bulgy, but pointy. And yeah, just continue doing that and just slowly working the form. Don't forget the lower part of the skull here kind of lines up with the bottom of the nose. So I'm going to lower this part here a bit. And just move around and continue working on her over here. So I'm going to move the ears inwards. So I'm going to go to object mode, grab all of the ear parts here, go to edit mode, A to grab everything and move it inwards a bit on the X axis like that. I'll go back to perspective mode over here. So for the mouth, I'm going to make it look a bit more subtle, I think. So I'm going to go over here to the grab brush and just push it backwards a bit, go to the lower lips and push that backwards. It's behind the upper lips, not in front of it. All right. Perfect. Okay, so that looks okay for now. I will definitely work the form of the chin over here, maybe lower this area a bit. It's looking a bit too flat right now. And I'll move the neck upwards here a bit. And soon I'll add some more resolution for the different parts over here. Let me just take a look. I definitely want to work the skull a bit, make it a bit rounder. And you can see I'm doing really small changes here and there. I'm being loose, but I'm still being more subtle than I would with a male character. All right, I'm going to take the neck, make it a bit thinner. Okay, so I think that looks okay. The lower eyelids here are too big, definitely, so I can just get rid of this lower part a bit with the sculpt draw brush and control. I can just kind of carve in this area and then smooth it out. Make this area a bit more subtle. And work the thickness of this eyelid. And I'll do the same over here, just work it a bit. And I'm pushing here to work the thickness from the bottom parts. And yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna make her eyes a bit more roundish than I did with the male. A more round look, a bit more feminine. Or a bit more, you know, cute, like that. Okay, that looks good. I'm gonna push this part downwards, kind of make it look a bit more natural here and backwards over here. So for example, this part is usually hard to work with the eyelids when it's connected at lower poly counts, but because it's separate, it's a bit easier to work with like that. But of course, again, you have to properly imagine the position, the form and all of that, and try to imagine how they are together. So here it looks okay. I think it's time to add some details. So for the nose, I will, I'm thinking whether I should create the nostrils separately and continue with this method. I mean, why not? We already started with the ears. Might as well do it here as well. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll grab this, Shift D, and then edit mode, move it forward down here. I will scale it like that and just put it over here. Okay, so here you can go to sculpt mode, go to I for inflate, just inflate the whole thing like that, and then Control R to remesh and inflate again. And here I'll use the snake tool to kind of create the nostrils, the wing of the nose. All right, so I'm gonna create that, but I'll have to go to the nose and kind of remove this part, the nostril. So I'm just pushing it inwards with the snake hook brush, and then I'll go back to this one and I'll try to create the shape like this. As you can see, it looks a bit weird. That's normal. It's just a start. Control R again whenever you're doing big changes, and then just add some inflate. And this way you can see how to work with a thin object like that. Because again, depending on the brush, it might be hard to work with. So for example, if I add, let's say the clay strips here, you can see it's affecting this part as well. So just to use different brushes like the inflate brush to kind of add some thickness, and then just move things around with the grab brush and you will be good to go. All right, so I'm gonna make this part here smaller. So yeah, working with different parts like this will also force you to think of different elements, their form, their shape. All right, so I want her nose to be a bit pointy since it's a female character. I can do that. And she will look a bit more feminine. It's more of a feminine trait. So I'm going to make this part thinner here. I'm going to use, let's see, go to Remesh 0.02, Control R, and I'll just smooth this area out. I'm going to remove some of this with the Sculpt Draw brush, make it a bit thinner. Like that. I don't want to make it too thin. And here I will just lower this area like that. And then just push this inwards, make it a bit curvy like this. And then outwards here for the button of her nose. There we go. That works fine for now. And I want to push this outwards a little like this, as if it's merging with the skin. I want to make sure it's part of the face. And yeah, I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to just move this forward for the nasolabial fold. It's going to be a lot more subtle here. But I will still hint it ever so slightly. So yeah, I can see if I go here and add the outline, you can see how it's hard to see the parts together because of the outline. That's why I like to remove the outline when sculpting. All right, so let's go to the lips. I'd like to make it a bit more, well, a bit bigger over here. And something like that for now. And then I'll go to Remesh 0.02, Control R. I will do another symmetrize. Let's see, where is it? It's right over here. I actually have it in my quick favorites, I think. Yeah, I already have it here with Q, so symmetrize. And then I'll just add some volume here. Make it go outwards from the top and then backwards like this. And that's another area that's easier to work with separately, the upper and lower lips, when you're working at a lower resolution because of the areas of contact. So here I will go to 0.02, Control R, and continue to sculpt the lips. All right. Okay, the lips are maybe too big for her face. Again, we got to be a little careful because I am aiming for a realistic proportion kind of look. So I don't want to make it too stylized. All right. Okay, and then I will move this forward. And yeah, you can see I made the lips smaller. It looks a bit more feminine that way. By smaller, I mean not as wide. And for the edge of the lips, again, it's around where the iris is. The inner corner of the iris. So this is fine. She's starting to look a bit more feminine like that. I find that to be the case. The ears are definitely big, especially from the side, but even from the front. So I can grab all these elements and just scale them down a bit like that, and just lower the ears a bit like this. There you go, that looks better. And maybe even move them a bit forward and maybe make the skull smaller. So if I take a look at the distance from the lower chin to the nose, and I put it from the corner to here, that's around where the ears would be. If you want to use the guidelines that I already showed you on the proportions, you can do that. And then the ear line would be halfway through the skull. So I'll add the length approximately, and it would approximately be smaller over here, like that. See, even though I use my proportions from time to time as a guideline to help me out with sculpting, I'm still not doing it like perfectly. I want to be a bit loose with my work, and I don't want to be too stiff with these kind of things. I think it's not a good thing to be too stiff with proportions. Again, because in reality, anyways, people are all different. So you can use it as a way to help you, but not as a final thing. All right, so let's see. What can we do to improve her a bit more? She's definitely looking good. We can already merge things, but I want to push it a bit further while it's still separate like this, just to work the form a bit more. So I'm going to go to the face here. I will go to Remesh 0.02, Control R. And I'll just smooth things out and see what we got over here. I really like the form so far. It's actually turning out to look pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna lower the head here a bit. Maybe the skull, sorry. Maybe it's a bit too big. Yeah, I'm just talking visually. But by lowering this, the lower parts will definitely look a lot bigger. So I'm gonna just make the whole head shorter by raising this area over here. And see, because these things are separate, when I'm raising it, I'm not really masking this part so that I don't touch the mouth. I'm just simply moving things upwards. So let's go over some of the proportions here, the general guidelines. So if I go to orthographic view, the eyes should be around the middle of the head over here. So I'm going to use my hands on the screen just to see. It's more or less the case. The ears are in the right position. We have the lower ear matching the lower nose over here. The upper ear, we can make it a bit shorter to kind of match with around where the eye line is to make it a bit smaller. We can use the third. So let's see. This distance over here from the lower chin to the lower nose, if we double it, it will be around over here. Whoops, sorry. I had to sneeze. Okay, so if we double it, it will be around over here where the brow is. That's good. And then this one is where the hairline is. So I'm not really doing it perfectly since I'm only doing it here by eye. And yeah, I'd say the top of the head should be around over here, realistically speaking. Of course, every person is different, but I did say the skull did look a bit too big. So I will go ahead and lower the upper skull. So yeah, you can see I only used the guidelines over here just to double check the proportions because visually it did look off to me. And that's where I really use proportions, the general guidelines. But of course, I've sculpted a lot of heads, so I kind of have proportions in my head to start with. I know what they are, and I just try to stay loose with them so that I don't end up with something that looks very stiff. And I definitely am a lot more loose when I'm sculpting something a lot more stylized. All right, so I'd say the width of the head, we could make it a bit less wide here. So maybe just push it inwards like that. Again, quite easy to do these things because all of the elements are separate. So this is where the advantage of sculpting this way comes. All right. So this is not bad. I'd say it's probably better than what we had before. I will make the neck a bit thinner. I don't want to make it look like it's tapering though. I'm going to kind of straighten it out from the front over here. And it looks a bit too big for the head right now because we made the head smaller. So remember, when you're playing with proportions, you have to be careful. You move one part, you're going to have to pay attention to the rest and how it affected it. So making the head shorter over here made the neck look bigger. So that is something I have to pay attention to and fix right away. Okay. And I will also grab the whole neck and just push it a bit forward like that. All right. That works for now. I'm gonna remove the annotations over here. For the width of the head, it is fine. The distance between the eyes is more or less the distance of one eye over here, as you can see. And then one more is around where the edge of the head is. So it's around the right proportions. So that's cool. I can continue working on her right now. All right, so here I will add maybe the neck muscle separately, so the sternocleidomastoid. To do so, I'll just grab any of these things. This one, for example, Shift-D, duplicate it, and then right-click, go to Edit Mode. I'm going to put it down over here, behind the neck. Don't forget, it goes to the mastoid process of the skull over here. And then I will go to Sculpt Mode, and I'll just use the snake hook to pull it a bit like this. I can always use Control-R for remesh. Then I can just use I for inflate the whole thing. K again for snake hook, and just continue moving it like this. All right, so I'm gonna inflate it over here like that. Use the snake hook again, and I'll continue working it like this. Okay. And here I will show you what we're going to do later on with the rest, just so that you have an idea. So this is just a demonstration. All right, so I'm going to go over here to this neck. I'm going to go to Remesh 0.0, let's see, maybe 4, Control R, that should be fine. I will use the draw sharp brush to kind of remove from this area a bit. Maybe push the neck forward a bit like that. All right, so I'm gonna just continue quickly moving the sternocleidomastoid. I'm gonna keep it subtle. Not gonna show it too much. Okay, so once we're done with positioning and everything and creating the form, we're just gonna shift click this, for example. So if we have the lips, we'd shift click the face. So shift click this. First of all, we have to click the sternocleidomastoid, of course, and then shift click this one, and then Control J for joining, as you can see over here. Now, why did it get rid of the other one? Oh, okay. So I'm gonna click on this first, apply the mirror. So either Control A or just click on this and apply. And then you can shift click this, Control J, and then go to sculpt mode. And with sculpt mode, if you use Control R, it will merge when you do a remesh, basically. So this would be the method that we're gonna do with the rest of the head. All right, so I just wanted to quickly show you that while we were at it. And then once you do that, you can merge things. And as you can see, you can see better how the form works together once they're merged, right? Okay, perfect. So I will just smooth the sternocleidomastoid a bit. I don't want it to be too visible, like that, especially at first over here. And I think this is a good place. So Control R again, just for this lower part over here. This topology is looking weird, so Control R, and that looks better. All right, that's pretty cool. And now we can continue. Let's just go to the face, play around with it a bit more. I'm gonna switch to perspective mode. All right, and I'm just looking around and I wanna see what I'm gonna do. The chin is way narrower than this one. I might keep it this way. I might make it a bit wider. We will see. For the chin, I will just add some volume over here with the clay strips, like that. And make it pointy a bit. Just move it downwards like this. And I want to raise this area a bit. Have a little thing going on like this. All right, so I usually notice that when I look at photo references. So I tend to do it. Especially for female characters, not for male characters. As you can see, like this. Okay, and then I'm just looking at the head from all sides. There's something here I'd like to fix. I think maybe the neck's too small for the head. Let me just take a look at it from all sides. Again, always take your time. Don't rush things. Look around. If something looks off, try to fix it. I think the neck is too backwards. Maybe that's what it is. So it really depends, but yeah, okay. See, it's connected over here. Because it's separate, sometimes you don't really think of that kind of thing, but that's why it looked a bit weird. All right. So it'll look a lot better once it's connected, but I'll still kind of do that form over here so that it doesn't look too weird while I'm sculpting. Okay, see, that looks a lot better. Now the shading looks a little more natural from the front. It was looking weird and inwards and far away from the head. Okay, perfect. And let's see, I'm gonna have to play around with the lips, maybe add the lower muscles over here. I can do them separately or just sculpt them on the face. Let's do them separately. I'll just take this Shift D and then go to edit mode, put it down over here. I'll go to sculpt mode, I for inflate, like that, and then K for the knife tool. Actually, this part is going to be connected. It's this part over here. So what we can do is remove the mirror modifier. So Control A to apply it. And then I can just move this area here to the left without symmetry to move it past the symmetry line. And then if I put symmetry again and go to symmetrize over here, I'm just going to do it with my hotkey quick favorites. So if I use symmetrize, it will just symmetrize and you'll have the whole thing in the middle over here. Okay, so Control R for remesh, and then I will just move things around over here for the muscles of the mouth, or part of it at least. And yeah, you can see it can be quite fun creating parts separately. You can have fun with that, create different parts of the face, and it will again force you to kind of think of these parts while you're sculpting. So it's a very, very fun exercise to do. All right. Once we're done with that, I can do the same thing for the upper part. So Shift D and then go to edit mode, move it upwards, and I'll go to sculpt mode and just move the whole thing forward here. I actually need it for the side here. And maybe, yeah, no, that's fine. Just for the side over here. Okay. Whoops. What was that? Oh, that's, I think that's remesh. So with R, I think we can change the meters here of the remesh. Yes, you can. Okay, I just did that by mistake. Don't worry about that. So anyways, I'll continue. So Control R. All right, so sometimes new hotkeys are being added to Blender in your version. So I'm not aware of all of the hotkeys being added. But for changing the remesh value over here, I'd rather do it manually than use this and try to find a good value. I'm not used to doing it that way. All right, so I to inflate, I'm just kind of adding some volume over here, adding the flesh here around the lips. As you can see. And I'm just gonna remove from here. I'm not looking to add anything here. That's fine. And then I can definitely merge some parts to make things a bit easier. So I'm just going to continue working this form over here before I merge it. Like that. All right, that works. This one as well. I'll actually just add some form over here at the end of the day. That will work. Control R. Okay. Like that. I'm gonna move this upper part downwards. Okay, that's better. And maybe I will create the upper part here separately from the lips. I'm not sure yet. For now, it looks fine the way it is, so maybe not. I'll go to the lips over here. I'll add the fill trim. Okay, so to add the fill trim, I will increase this to 0.01. And I say increase even though I'm lowering the value because I'm increasing the resolution. So Control R. I'll just smooth it out a bit and work this area. So I'm gonna use the sculpt draw brush and just remove from the middle over here for the fill trim. And then I will add volume to the upper part of the lips over here, this part that bulges out a bit, the ridge. Okay, and then I'll remove from over here. Looking nice. And I'll go over here and do the same. So I'll increase the resolution to 0.01, Control R, and then I will just work the form. So I will add some sculpt draw over here and maybe create some separation in the middle of the ellipse over here that you see sometimes more obviously with certain individuals. Like that. I think it makes it look nice, a bit more feminine. Let's take a look over here. The lower lip here is looking weird. We need to push out this lower part here like that. And then there's this angle here. It goes backwards. And I need to make sure that it looks good from all sides. All right, so again, see, I'm going for a different shape for the face. So I'm not going for the same face over here. I'm going for bigger lips. I think that looks nice as well. And since the lips are separate, it's very easy to work over here. And let's see, I'd like to improve this part of the face over here. So I'm thinking of connecting these two. So let's do that. Just shift click on this, Control J, sculpt mode, Control R. There you go. Okay. I'm going to connect them like that and just work this area here. And I want to make it more subtle with the rest of the face. Right now, it doesn't seem connected to the face. You can see there's this big gap over here. So I'm going to take the sculpt draw brush and just shave off from over here and make it look more natural. So that later on, when I connect it to the face, it's already in a good place. All right, that's fine. I will grab, let's see, maybe I will add the nasolabial fold separately for now. So to do so, I will grab the nose over here, duplicate it. I'll go in edit mode, put it over here, go to sculpt mode, and then I'll use K for the snake hook and Control R while I'm doing that to add more topology and fix the topology. There you go. For the nasolabial fold. All right, so I need to inflate it a bit. It's a bit thin here from the bottom, making it hard to work with. And then I'll just do that. All right, cool. So this is looking cool. I need to just work this form a bit more before I move on. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just, you know, try to get something that looks good, and then you can merge it later on and clean things up. All right. Okay. That's good. So here I will just click on this, shift click on this, Control J, and then go to Control R. I didn't apply the mirror, but that's fine. I can always use symmetrize to put it to the other part here. And then I'll just smooth this area. You can see we have this small bulge over here that I just created. And I'll just smooth the upper part here like that. And obviously we could have created that directly on the sculpt. I am just showing you how this technique works and how you can use it. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to increase this part over here. I mean, raise it. And I think this part is starting to look better for sure. Like that. And maybe even show the cheekbone a bit more. I do like it the way it is, so I'm hesitant about that, but I will raise it a bit closer to the eye here to make it a bit more obvious over here. And I need to add a separation over here. Not really a separation, but it shouldn't be connected that way. It looks really weird over here. So I'm going to use the draw sharp brush to kind of create the separation first, and then I'll smooth it out like this, as you can see, and that looks better. So you can see now it has this form instead of before it being just straight. So let me just remove that right away so that we can continue sculpting. Okay, I'll start adding more details, but before I do that, I will maybe just merge this over here. So I'll click on this, shift click on this, Control J, go to sculpt mode and Control R. And then I will smooth things out and make it look a bit more natural. Okay. So again, it's not that necessary to create these parts separately. We're just doing an exercise here to practice that. Just so that you can kind of get the hang of it. Okay, so here I will start working the face a bit more, just the form of the face. Let me just go to the skull. I still think the skull is a bit too out there and can be improved. There you go, make this a bit thinner, like that, and maybe show the plane change here a bit more. So I can push this area inwards a bit or use something like the, let's see, maybe the sculpt draw brush at a very low strength, like 0.1. And with control, I can kind of carve in this area to make this area a bit thinner here. And the chin over here, I mean, the cheekbone will be a bit more prominent. But I want to keep it very subtle since we're working with a female character. It would look a bit more female, a bit more feminine if it looked more subtle. Okay, that looks great. Perfect. I'm kind of making things more subtle by smoothing things out here and there. And yeah. So I can definitely connect the upper lip to the mouth or the lower one, either one right now. So let me do that. I'd like to see how it looks like with it. So we can click on the mouth, shift click over here, Control J, go to sculpt draw brush, to sculpt mode, and then Control R, like this. Just smooth things out over here. And we can start merging things left and right. All right, that looks great. Actually, what I want to do before I merge more things is work the eyes over here. So I'm going to remove from here. So I'm going to increase the strength to 0.2, remove from this area with control like that. Make this area a bit smaller here, a bit more hollow for now so that I can work the eyes. I can't really see what's going on over here. So I will add the iris. Let's do that right away. So we're going to go to edit mode. We're going to take this loop and this one over here, this vertex. Actually, we're going to take these vertices and this vertex. And then we're going to move it forward a bit like this on the y-axis. And then we will grab this loop over here and just double G to edge slide it outwards just a bit to make the iris a bit bigger. And then we can use Control R, add a ring here and another one over here. And then we can go out and just shade smooth it with the right click. So just right click, shade smooth. And now we have the iris. All right, that looks great. We're gonna move this vertex a bit more forward like that. Not too much. Okay, that looks good. So now we can see that we're not seeing enough from the left part of the eye. We're seeing a bit too much from the right, so we can fix that right away. So I'm gonna move this to the left and then I'll take this part of the face and just kind of remove from this area and work the outer part as well. So we're definitely seeing a lot from here. That's the reason this looks weird. So I'm gonna just move the eyelids and kind of clean that up. Okay. She kind of looks almost surprised, not yet. It's because we're seeing a lot from the eyes, so I might keep it that way. Kind of looks nice. See, that would be really surprised because we're seeing a lot of the iris. So it's very important to pay attention to how much of the iris is being covered. I'm gonna lower this part here, just try this, like that. And cover some of the iris a bit more for a look like this. That looks a little cooler. And then just raise this ever so slightly, make it a bit more straight from the inner part over here. I don't want it to go down too much. Okay. Like this, that looks good. Maybe lower this area and yeah. Okay, that's a bit better. So I'm squinting my eyes right now and I'm trying to imagine the proportions because they look a bit off. And again, this is the challenge of sculpting things separately. It's hard to see how exactly it looks like together. I definitely made the mouth a bit too big, but I am going for big lips, so I'm playing around with the idea. So I made it big on purpose and I'll dial it down as I see fit if it needs to be dialed down. All right, so let's just add some volume here, make it a bit cleaner, like this, here as well. That's good. And maybe we can fix this area over here. So this form over here is looking, as you can see over here, very, very flat. We need to work it. So I'm gonna add volume over here. And now since I connected the lips to this part, I can see that better. And I know that this part can be improved. Here as well, it's going a bit inwards. I can see that from the shading, this area over here. So I'm just gonna add some sculpt draw brush over here and just clean that up. Make it look a bit natural. So we'll be able to do that as we start connecting the parts. Everything will be more obvious. All right, so here it looks a bit weird. You can see the shading, it's too dark. Here it looks a lot more natural, so I can just simply add some sculpt draw brush here and just add some volume like this. All right. Without adding too much, I don't want to mix it up too much with the cheeks. I like the fact that we can really see the cheeks over here. So I'm adding volume, but being subtle about it at the same time. Okay, that's great. Let's move on to, let's see. It's looking better and better by the minute. I really like the eyes. The form looks good. So let me just modify it just a bit and improve it a bit over here if I can. I'm just taking a look at the iris here. It's not quite in the middle. It's okay if it's not 100% in the middle. It doesn't have to be, but I'd like to just make it a bit more in the middle. All right. Okay, that looks good for now. Let's work the nose, make it a bit wider over here. It's a bit too thin, like that. And then go back to the head, and we can definitely start merging parts. Let's start with the ears. Let's merge the ears first. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is go to this ear over here, this part of the ear, go to remesh, put it at 0.01, increase the resolution, and I'll just smooth it out and improve the form before I merge it with the rest. All right, so let me just try to move this area and just work the form over here to 0.3 for the strength, and I'll continue doing that. And basically I'm working this area over here. All right. So I'm just gonna increase that, raise it, and smooth it over here. All right. And then I'll take this one, again, do the same thing, 0.01, Control R. I'll smooth it out a bit. And I'll work this area. All right, like that. And just remove from this area over here. This part goes above this, like that. Okay, let's take a look from this side. Maybe increase this to 0.4. And I'll continue working the form. All right, that looks good. I will just move the ears inwards a bit and outwards from the edge over here. And maybe go to the head and just push this part inwards a bit like that. Make this part of the head a bit narrower. It's a bit too boxy. Like that. And push the whole thing backwards here for the neck. Okay. The jaw is looking a bit too long. I'd like to lower the ears over here a bit to make this look appear less long. As you can see, that's a little better. And from the side, I feel like this area here could be raised a bit like that. All right, and by doing that, of course, I'm gonna lower the skull as well because it made it appear bigger. Okay, so I wanted the distance between this angle over here and the ears to be shorter. This is why I did all of these changes, because it did look a bit too long. All right, so that's a bit of modification on the proportions. Let's continue with the ears. So I'm going to take this part over here. I'm going to go to Remesh 0.01, Control R, and I will continue to work the form over here, add some volume, remove, and just make this look better. So this part's over here. All right. And all of this will look a lot better once it's merged, of course. So right now it's a bit rough. I'm going to take this, improve this area. Just remove from here. Like that, and yeah. Now it's starting to look more like an ear. That looks great. So now I can probably merge it. Just gonna move this a bit inwards and merge it with the rest. So I'm gonna take all these three, Control J to merge. I didn't apply the mirror, but that's fine. We'll just put a symmetry. So I'll go to Sculpt Mode, Remesh 0.01. Let's actually keep it like that and see what it looks like. Now I'd like to actually increase it to 0.007 maybe. There you go, that's a little better. Maybe even lower, 0.006 to keep the details a bit. All right, we'll lower it later on. Well, we'll lower the resolution if it's too high. So we're gonna put it at 0.04. Let's exaggerate it a bit. That would be, let's see, 65K. All right, that should be fine. So again, you can lower it that much because it's separate from the head. It's a small object. If it's with the head, that number would make the faces way, way higher. Probably at least a million. I won't say I know exactly how Remesh works, but yeah. I just, that's what I noticed. I don't know if it's the scale of the object or the volume of the object. Probably the amount of shapes it has. I don't know. So yeah, you can't, the values over here, they will work differently depending on the object you're working with. Okay, that's looking cool. I'm smoothing out these parts that were separate before, but I'm trying to keep the detail, so I'm not smoothing it everywhere like this. I'm choosing the places to smooth, something I've already explained with the male sculpts. Okay, so that looks great. Just smooth this upper part over here. This part, I'm gonna just remove it like that, smooth it out. Like that. Maybe use the draw sharp brush to kind of create this crease over here. And increase the smooth brush because it's being a bit of a pain to smooth at this resolution. So again, if you raise the resolution a lot, you're gonna have to increase the strength of your brushes to have some effect. All right, so I'm just gonna draw sharp over here as well. It's fine, I'll keep it like this for now. I'm just gonna move it a bit, and that kind of works. We have the ears. We'll modify it later on once we have the rest of the head. Here, I will just move the cheeks a bit and just lower them over here a bit and raise them here. Okay, that works. So next we can maybe merge the neck with the head for it to look a bit more natural. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so click on the neck, shift click on the face, Control J, go to sculpt mode and go to remesh. I'm gonna put it at 0.01, Control R. That might be too high actually. I'm gonna keep it at 0.02. Control R, and then I'll just smooth over here, but I will go back to the smooth brush and put it at 0.3. All right, perfect. And I'll just smooth this area a bit and make it look more natural over here. All right, that looks better. Just gonna straighten it out a bit from the front. And here as well. All right. Okay, so let's continue working the front parts. I'll make this part here just a bit wider, as if the torso is starting from here, and then I'll continue with the head. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I can keep the neck like this for now, that's fine. It looks a bit weird here. Maybe I'll shave off a bit from this area. Make it a bit more round like that. And that looks great. All right, so let me just adjust my seat. There you go. And continue with the sculpt. Okay, so what's next? I'm just taking a look at the form of the skull. Again, they're just small changes here and there. But we kind of have everything already set. We could merge it at any point. I'd like to improve the nose here a bit. So 0.01, Control R. And just maybe mark this area by shaving it off with Control and the draw brush. So this area over here. All right, and try to connect this part here with the rest, which will be obviously easier to do later on once we merge this part. Okay, this is good enough for now. Let's work the lower part of the nose. So I want to decrease the strength to 0.25 here and then just smooth things out and add some volume here to the edge and kind of work this area here that I'm not happy with yet. All right. And then I'll take this one, so the wing of the nose. I'll go over here, 0.01, so you can see I'm starting to increase the resolution of these separate parts so that I can improve the shapes a bit more before I merge them. I feel like the nose is a bit long. For a female, usually it would be shorter. So let me just grab these two, G, Z, and move them upwards. We can easily adjust shapes just to see. All right, that's a little better. The nose is a bit too forward. The wing of the nose is a bit too forward as well. So we will just move it backwards like that, downwards a bit, and just move the whole front of the face a bit backwards here. This is going too much forward as well. There you go. And I'm gonna take this part here and just move it backwards a bit like that. So again, I'm just improving the form, nothing new. I'm gonna go over here and just remove from this area, shave off a bit, just so that we can see the wing of the nose a bit better. All right, so I'm thinking of maybe moving the forehead a bit more backwards like this. All right. And of course, this is really straight right now, so I'm gonna round it a bit. From the edges over here, again, I'm being very, very subtle, if you notice, with modifications with the female head, because again, they have very subtle forms compared to their counterpart. And yeah. So here I'm seeing a bit too much of the eye. Again, this is the disadvantage of sculpting separately. It's kind of hard to notice these areas right away. It would have been a lot more visible if I was sculpting everything directly. So I just moved it forward. As you can see, that's what it looked like before. And this is what it looks like right now. But again, there are a lot of advantages as well to sculpting separately like this. So definitely practice doing both methods. Sculpting directly from one sphere or sculpting like this, and then just working the shapes slowly. And yeah, so I'm gonna make this area a bit thinner. It's starting to look a bit too wide. And I'll take the lips here, I'll make it a bit smaller, and yeah, so the corner of the lip is around the right place, which is cool. Okay. And the lips are maybe too forward, I'd say. So I'm gonna move it backwards a bit more, like that. I'll move this whole part backwards, and the front lip, I'm gonna move it backwards as well, just not too much. Kind of like it being forward like that. Okay. Perfect. And this part that goes backwards, I'm gonna keep it a little subtle for the female head, but it still needs to be there. And of course, she does have a bra. I need to push this out even if it's not protruding like a male character. I need to push it out a bit and make the form a bit subtle. All right, cool. So I think we're gonna... Oh, actually, before merging, I still want to work this area here. I don't really like how boxy she looks like. Over here, the jaw really plays a big role at making someone look feminine or masculine. So I want it to be a bit more round and smooth over here in the corner, like this. All right, that's better. It was a bit too angular before. Let's take a look. It looks good. Maybe push this backwards a bit for the neck. Give her a thinner neck. I think globally she looks good this way. That's not bad. I think proportion-wise we can maybe improve it a bit as we merge things, but I don't really notice anything really off right now with things being separate like this. So again, this will be easier to see once we merge things. So I'm going to continue just adding more details before I merge things. So 0.01 for this part, Control R and smooth it out. And just work the form a bit better over here. I know this part can be improved, so I'm going to go ahead and just work this area above the eyes. And again, this part here can be very, very different from one person to another. Let me just push it backwards. It was a bit too out there. So it's very different from one person to another. So you have to really pay attention to the reference you're working with. If you're looking from photos or anything like that, like real people, just pay attention to how different it is from one person to another, and you can get a lot of interesting forms over here. All right, so you can see here, I'm trying to connect it and make it look more natural with the rest of the head, so that I don't suffer too much once I join it later on to clean things up. All right, so for the eyelids, let me just get it a bit closer to the eye over here and move it backwards like that. That looks globally good. I don't have a lot to say about the eyelids for now. Maybe just move this area here forward. It's showing a bit too much of this part, so by moving it forward, it will look a bit more natural and realistic. And we can increase the resolution for the eyelids for sure to see what's going on. So I'm going to increase it to 0.008 for the upper eyelids, like that, and use another remesh just to clean up the topology. And just move forward this part because of how the eyelid shape is. How the eye's shape is, how it goes outwards. So the eyelids should kind of be affected by that. All right, perfect. It's really turning out to look cool. So I'm going to go to the lower one, do the same thing, 0.008, Control R, and I'll clean up this area. Of course, we can make the lower eyelids more subtle once we connect it to the face over here. But right now it looks really sharp because it's separate. I can make the lower eyelids a bit bigger over here. All right, that looks good. And I just want the shapes of the eyes to look nice. They're one of the most important parts when you're creating a character. It can really make or break a sculpt. All right, so another part I'd like to improve is right over here. Maybe smooth this out a bit and work it. Add some form over here. Like that. Okay, and just work this area here. Okay, make it look a bit more natural. All right. The nose might still look a bit too big because once we connect it, it's gonna look like the nose goes from here to here, and that will make it look really big. So what I'm gonna do is just lower this whole area. I think it's raised too much. Yeah, it looks a little better. I'm gonna lower this area too, like that. All right, and then I'm gonna go back here and just work the form of the head again. Okay, so I'm just taking a look at the face before I start merging things, and globally not bad. Maybe the ears could use some improvement from the side. It looks a bit too big. And the shape can be improved as well. See, the C shape over here is too large, so I'm just gonna kind of fix that slowly like that by making it a bit smaller and moving it around. All right. Let me take a look here. All right. Okay, let me continue working on the face proportions here a bit. I just want to make it a bit thinner. I find it to be a bit too wide over here. Maybe even show the cheekbone a bit more, just carve in this area like that. Okay. And just do a few quick adjustments before I join everything. Just things I noticed here that I don't like that much with the face. And of course, this area over here is requiring some attention, some volume. So I'm gonna just bulk it up over here and be a bit more blunt with my strokes and fix things when I need to. All right, that's a little better. I'm gonna add some volume down here as well. There you go, it was looking a little flat. Maybe I'll end up making this part just a bit longer, just a tad bit longer, and this is definitely looking a bit flat from the profile. So I'm gonna fix that. And also the nose, the wings over here, and the mouth, they're not back enough for a more realistic proportion. So I'll have to push this whole thing backwards and again be a bit more blunt about it because I need to make these changes to improve the sculpt. All right, so let's see, maybe the neck as well, too wide. All right, and I'll just move this area here inwards a bit, work the skull really fast like that. So it's quite normal to go back and forth and fix things when you notice things you don't like. That happens quite often when sculpting. Sometimes you get results fast enough. Sometimes you just need to work the form, and you should definitely do that. All right, that looks a bit better. And over here, I will raise this area, maybe even use the sculpt draw brush to carve this area over here. Make it a bit more visible and a bit more volumetric from here so that we can have this nice curve and not have it too flat. Okay, perfect. So here we can take this lip over here and just smooth it out a bit. And just add some clay strips over here on the bottom. Okay, let's take a look at the profile. Maybe I can take the eyes over here, put them backwards a bit. They were a bit too forward. And just move the lips a tad bit backwards like this. The bottom lips as well. And of course, the wings of the nose. So I'm just going to take the nose over here while they're still separated and just move them backwards like that. And I'll have to push this backwards so that we can see the wing of the nose like this. Okay, that's looking better. A bit more natural from the side. Let's take a look over here. All right, I think it's time to just merge things and continue working on the forms while it's merged. Okay, so I'm gonna select the mouth, the nose, the eyelids. Let me just make sure I did that right. So the nose, the mouth, the eyelids, and this. And then last, I'm gonna select the head, Control J to join. Make sure there is no mirror modifier here. We're good to go. I'm gonna go to sculpt mode, click on this, go to symmetrize, and then I can do some remesh. So I'll just keep it at 0. Actually, I'll put it at 0.015 maybe. And then Control R to merge. All right, I'm gonna use Control Z and I'll actually lower it to 0.01. Control R to merge, and that's more than fine. So I'm gonna smooth this area out and start merging stuff. All right. Okay, I'm gonna move the mouth a bit more backwards over here. So now that everything's merged, it's a bit easier to see the form and work these areas. All right, so I'm gonna smooth the eyes so that it looks a bit more natural over here where it's touching the rest of the face, the eyelids, I mean. And I'll do the same over here. I'll maybe even remove a bit from this area. It's just bulging out a bit too much. And I will click on this over here to remove the radius, the sensitivity of the radius. And I'll also go over here and change the strength. Actually, I'll keep it at 0.6. That's more than fine. So no, it's too strong. Okay, so 0.4. All right, so 0.4 is fine for me. I'll just remove a bit from here and add a bit from the top over here like this. And as you can see, I'm being more blunt with the changes because I want to do some big changes here, and I'll just dial it back later on and soften things up. But since it's a female character, I was being a bit too careful just so that we don't mess up things too much. But since, again, I want to make big changes and fix things here and there, I think I can be a bit more blunt with my strokes. Okay, so just keep in mind, this will require a bit more cleanup later on with a smooth brush, but nothing we can't handle. All right, so I will just continue to work the brow over here. I'll look at it from the top over here, make it a bit more round. That's good. I'll even connect this area. It's looking weird. So again, once you connect things, you'll be able to fix all of these areas that looked a bit weird separated. All right. And again, it looks rough, I know, but it's gonna come together very soon. Again, I'm not bothering with smoothing everything while I'm doing it. I'm just working the form now, and then I'll work the refinement, smoothing things out. Okay. So I'm gonna add some volume over here for the cheekbone. And I will shave off from this area for the temple. Again, I know it's very, very obvious here for a female character, but this is something we can dial down later on. I'm just kind of putting down the landmarks of these important parts like the cheeks, the temple. And I'm going to add some volume over here for the lips. And of course for the chin as well. And for below the lips over here, so the mouth muscle. All right, that's a little better. Okay. So now I can, let's see, I can move around. So basically by adding clay strips to all these areas, you're kind of making these areas pop out a bit more, and then you'll be able to work the form. For example, let's say I want the cheek to pop out more. I can shave off from the bottom over here, maybe push out a bit from the top, like that. I can shave off from here, make this plane change from the front plane to the side plane a bit more obvious, and again, we can dial things down. So there's no one way to sculpt. There are a lot of ways, and you'll find yourself trying many different methods depending on the situation, depending on the sculpts, and sometimes depending on your mood. All right, so that's great. I'd like to work the lips a bit more. Maybe decrease it to 0.3. It's a bit too strong. Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna work the lips a bit more here. Work the shape of the lips. I'll add more volume here, like this, below the lips. And I can use the Draw Sharp brush to kind of create some crease over here, like that. And maybe put the lower lip backwards. So with Ctrl-Shift-B, I can create a mask like this, and then Q smooth mask for quick favorites. Again, if you don't have it on your quick favorites, just go to mask over here and add it by clicking on smooth mask, right click, and add to quick favorites. And then I'll just push this part backwards like this. And I will just smooth out the lower lip a bit over here and just rework the form again. So don't hesitate to change things if you're not happy with them. So as you can see, I'm doing a lot of changes over here, and that's a good thing because that happens quite often with sculpting. You shouldn't feel like, okay, so you've already sculpted everything the way it is, and you shouldn't be discouraged to change things if you need to, if you want to improve things. All right? Okay, so here I will just remove a bit from the upper lip to make it look a bit more obvious here that this is a plane change that goes downwards like this, so like that and then like that. Let me just remove that annotation. Okay, cool. Definitely would like to work the nose a bit more here. Overall, it looks good. I just need to make it a bit more petite, a bit more feminine, especially from the top parts over here. All right. Even though sculpting things separately is a great way to learn and sculpt and all of that, personally, I tend to prefer a bit more sculpting like this. It has a bit more of a natural feel for me, but I like to mix both from time to time, like we did over here. It gets us really nice results. So even though I'm kind of redoing a lot of things over here or just working them a lot, we have a very solid base to work with. So it's still very nice and clean. So just by smoothing out these areas, you can see we're getting really clean results right away. So it definitely has its benefits. All right, so the lip over here is not the strongest suit. It's not bad. It's not quite what I'm looking for yet. So I will not hesitate to continue working it. Until I get something that I like. And you should never settle. You should definitely always try for better, and it's okay if you don't get the results you want right away. You can try again and again. I went through a lot of sculpts in my life, and I failed a lot of times, and even up until today, I struggle with certain sculpts. It just happens, and the sculpts that I don't let go, when I keep on working hard and trying, the sculpt ends up being one of my best works. Of course, sometimes you need to start over. That happens to me again. That also happens to me where sometimes I don't feel it and I need to just start from scratch. This is not the case. I'm really liking where this is going, but I just thought of it and I thought I'd mention it. So if you're ever sculpting and it's just not working out, keep pushing it. And if it still doesn't work out and you feel like you want a fresh start, you can always start a new head sculpt, start from scratch. Just try to learn something new from every sculpt. right? Be conscious about your sculpts. If something's not working, always ask yourself, why is it not working? Compare it with sculpts. You know, you have my sculpt on the left over here. Compare it with it, put it side by side, look at reference, ask yourself questions, basically. Okay, let's take a look over here. All right, let me just adjust my seats. All right, so I like the lower parts more or less. It requires some work, but it's starting to come together. What I would like to fix is the eyes. This is definitely an area that needs work. It's looking a bit creepy, if I might say. And that's simply because the eyes were made separately and I still didn't refine the way they are with the rest of the head. So they still look a bit separate from the head. So I'm going to take a second here, look at it and kind of decide what I'm going to do to fix that. So I'm going to look from this side. You can see over here, there's this big area over here. This shouldn't be there, as you can see over here. This is one of the reasons it looks separate from the head. I can definitely work this area here, maybe raise it a bit. All right. See, so here I am comparing and I'm observing and I'm doing decisions, conscious decisions. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So that's how you learn. That's how you improve. So I'm going to raise this area by removing from this area over here with the clay strips. And then I'll add some clay strips up to raise the brows over here a bit. There you go. So I'm just changing the position and giving this area a bit more room to breathe so that I can work it. It was too close to the eyes, I believe. There you go. That's a bit better. Okay. As for the lower eyelids, I believe I'll have to just simply sculpt the cheekbone over here and raise it like that. There you go. Let me just remove that and get it out of the way. Okay, that's looking great. Let me take a look at this from all sides. Again, don't forget, rotate. You're working in 3D, not in 2D. So rotate the camera often and look at all sides and work things slowly but surely and improve things. All right, so here I'd like to connect the nose, the lower, the wing of the nose over here like that. All right, so I'm just adding this last part that wasn't there of the wing of the nose with the sculpt draw brush. And I keep on changing brushes. I just put one and try it out. And I put one that I feel like using. So the more you use these brushes, the more it'll make sense to you which one to use in which situation. But a lot of situations can be done with different brushes. So it's not only one brush for one situation, basically. But I like the clay strips for these kind of things where I'm making like a lot of big changes like that. And I'm when I want to be rough with my sculpting, a bit rough. All right, so I'm connecting the skin here. You can see that when I'm sculpting with direction. So I'm not just randomly putting brushes. I'm basically choosing the direction of the brush like this. For example, if I want to push this outwards, I'd do a lot of strokes like this with the clay strips, and then I can smooth it to get that effect. All right. So let's take a look at what we got over here. I know the eyes is still not perfect. We can still improve it. So I'm going to just remove from this area, raise the cheekbones here a bit more like that. And yeah, I'm not going to be shy with my strokes. Okay, awesome. So let's take a look at what we got over here. That's looking good. Okay, so this area here is going too much inwards and then outwards like that. I don't really like that. That's not natural looking. So instead, I'm going to grab this area and just push it outwards like this and make the nose a bit smaller so it looks even more feminine, as you can see. So that's what it looked like before. And that's what it looks like right now. And it's just a lot more natural. I'm going to push out the lips just a bit here so that it's a bit more round, because right now this is looking weird. It should be a bit more like this and then goes backward. So again, every lip is different, but I'm gonna just push this area forward here and make this a bit more natural looking, like that. All right, perfect. And now, of course, by pushing this forward, I'll have to work the form, right? Don't just push this forward and call it a day. This affects the surrounding forms, so don't forget, sculpting is a process. Now here when I'm recording, I'm just talking, so I'm not putting any music, but having some music in the background is always very relaxing when sculpting. All right, let's take a look at what we got over here. I'd like to add some volume here, so I'm just gonna add some clay strips. And I'm paying attention to any weird shading and working that. So I'm gonna start smoothing things so that we can see a bit what we have. And don't forget, when you're smoothing, don't just smooth everything. You wanna be smart about where you smooth so that you don't lose details, okay? So here I'm gonna smooth the lower part of the cheekbone and upper part separately to have that separation. And then I'm gonna smooth around the lower eyelids like this. All right. I'm gonna smooth the nasolabial fold and make it a bit less prominent. So here I chose to purposely smooth a bit in between to get rid of the detail over here where there was this crease, as you can see. So again, you have to be conscious and you have to choose your strokes carefully and in a smart way so that you get the results that you want. All right, I'm just gonna add some volume over here and continue smoothing. Here you can see it's looking a bit weird. I like to make it look more like it's connected. Not connected, but the skin is kind of naturally close to each other over here and not separated this way. All right. Maybe add some volume down here, like this. And the neck as well, just a bit, looking a bit flat over here. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna continue smoothing and refine these parts that I changed so that we can see what we got and so that we can see what we can do next to improve the sculpt. All right, so I'm gonna smooth this area like this, maybe add some clay strips over here. It's lacking some volume. That's a little better. Okay. Looking good. The lips, not so much. See, by smoothing these areas now I can better see the form and tackle the next thing. So the lips is lacking a lot of volume over here. So it has this weird shading. All right, that's a little better. Let's take a look. Still not perfect. I'm still gonna add some volume to the lips. You can see I'm adding some clay in certain areas to add volume without messing up the whole lip. All right. All right, let's take a look. That's a little better for the lips. I'm still trying to keep it a bit thick and big like that without making the whole face look weird. So I'll dial it down later on if I think it needs it. For now, I feel like it's doable. And we can definitely see the forms of the face a lot more than earlier before we joined things and made all of these big changes. Right, so I'm trying to find a balance, and because that's mainly because it's a female character. So I'm trying to find a balance between seeing the forms of the face, like the cheeks, the chin, and all of that, but still keeping it subtle enough so that it's not so that it's more feminine. And of course, every person is different, as I've said. This is not really a rule or anything like that. It's just a general guideline. And also the age plays its role, of course. So the older you are, the more likely you're going to see these separations. These different face parts, different fatty areas from the face, all of that. The nasolabial fold, for example, it would be a lot more prominent with age. All right, so I'm gonna add volume here. This ridge over here, it makes it look a bit more natural, and it's really nice to add. All right, I want to maybe remove from this area here, like this, perfect, and make it so that the chin here has some form. It turns around. So I mention form quite often when I sculpt, and I do that on purpose because I feel like it's one of the most important things. Working form, it's underrated. All right, so let me take a look over here. So this is looking not bad. I still feel like the lips are maybe a bit too big, but I like them. I like the form of the lips. So I'm still kind of fighting for them, you know? I'm being a bit stubborn with the lips. So I did another remesh because it was starting to get a bit difficult to work with the stretched out polygons, and now I'm working the eyes because they are a bit of a weak point of the character right now. And maybe I could make them a bit different here. I think there's a bit too forward still, or maybe, let's see. Maybe if I pushed the eyelids backwards a bit like that, it looks a little better. All right. And maybe if I push the ears backward a bit here and just make it a bit smaller. And also just move the whole thing. Whoops. Let's see, just move the whole thing. What is it doing? Oh, okay, there you go. Move the whole thing on the y-axis a bit. Let me just turn this off to see where I'm putting it. Just make the whole head a bit smaller. Put it right here. Just a bit. All right. So by doing that, I'll push this part a bit backwards like this. And that should do for now. So let's see. So yeah, we can see the lips are really big compared to the rest of the face. So I will have to dial it down a bit if I want this sculpt to be better. So I can still try to keep it big. Just what I need to fix here is the proportions. But I can keep the form of the lips. All right. Okay, I'm making the cheek here a bit bigger, a bit more round. And that looks a bit better with the mouth a little smaller like that. So if something looks off, try to play around with the proportions a bit. I'd say the ears, I can push them inwards a bit like this. There you go. And also the head, just a bit like that. Make it not as wide, basically. And push the eyes inwards, and also the whole thing over here. So I'm just gonna use Ctrl-Shift-B, grab this area, so basically create this mask. Actually, I'm gonna do it again. So Ctrl-Shift-B. Whoops, there you go. Without this lower part, so I'm gonna use M for mask, Control, remove this area here. All right, and just add over here. And I'm going to push the eyes inwards. All right, so Q, smooth mask a few times, Control I, and I'll just move the whole eye inwards so that the tear duct here kind of matches where the wing of the nose is. Because I made the nose smaller, I changed the shape of the head, so now I need to modify the shape of the eyes for it to work with it. Okay, that works. All right. Just gonna add some volume over here. It was going a bit too inward. And work the eyes a bit. Give her a better eye shape. Hold on, let me just fix my seat. So we're starting to get there for sure. We're getting a better, more natural look. I'm trying to give the character a bit more personality. Make an interesting look. So, yeah. All right. Let's take a look over here. Now this is looking great. Just a few changes over here. As you can see, this part was going inwards a bit too much. It made her look a bit weird here. And we pushed in the eyes since we changed some proportions like the nose. As I've explained before, the concept of proportion, basically we have to pay attention to the rest of the head and fix things accordingly. So here I'm making the head smaller. I need to go back here, use Ctrl Z, go back and see how it affects the head. All right. It didn't make it any worse. That's good. I'm just trying to make the skull a bit smaller. And yeah, I'm liking the eyes, the changes I did. I just lowered it a bit and made a nicer curve over here. So I just changed the shape a bit. I wasn't a huge fan of the other shape that I had earlier. This one's a lot better. For this character, of course, every character is different. Things gotta work together. It has to work with the nose, with the mouth. So now I'm lowering the eyebrows again, even though I raised it before. With this new eye shape, I find that a lower eyebrow would look a little nicer. And I could kind of indicate the eyelashes, sorry. Whoa, eyebrows, my bad. So the eyebrows over here. And I can just add some volume here and then I can smooth under it right here. Like this, and take a look. See, I'm loving that. Definitely a lot more personality right now. There's this look to the character. It's not just a generic character. Not just a generic shape or a generic face. So don't hesitate to add a little personality to your sculpts, a little expression as well. Even if you're going for something a bit neutral, it can go a long way and add a lot to your sculpts. All right, let's take a look from the profile. Don't forget to turn around from time to time. More than that, actually often, so that you don't miss anything. I'm gonna change the style of the surrounding area of the eye here a bit, not too much. I'm just gonna make this part here connect a bit more to the upper part. And make the upper eyelids here show less by doing that, as you can see. And add some volume down here, like this. Ooh, yep. That much I like. Okay, I like that. I had a feeling that would work for her. Okay, this has come a long way from 30 minutes ago. That's nice. All right, so here I want to try something. I want to make this distance shorter. I think it'll look better. But the problem is if I just raise this area, the angle over here will be above the mouth. And we already learned that that's not a good thing. It should be below the mouth. All right, so another solution would be to raise the whole thing over here, which is not a good idea because then it'll mess up with the proportions of the head, which is more or less good already. So another solution would be to simply raise the mouth and the nose. This way we can make the nose a little shorter. I think it's too long to start with. And we will have the mouth a little above over here, which will allow us to basically raise this area over here. So let's try that out. Okay, so here I will create a mask with the mask brush. So M for the mask brush. I'll just paint the mask over here. I'll remove from this area. And I want to make the mask blurry and smooth. So Q smooth mask a few times. Or again, just go to mask and smooth mask over here. And then Control I. And I'll just I'll just use the grab brush to move this whole part upwards a bit. And you can see that that makes the nose shorter and smaller. All right, so that works. I'm going to have to adjust the ears as well later on because I moved the nose. So anyways, since I raised this, let me use Control I to invert the mask over here. Maybe I'll raise this area to make the chin a bit thinner without raising the actual chin. All right, so I'm just going to raise this area a bit. Okay, and of course, this area, which I wanted to raise to start with, and also by moving the ears, I might change the distance over here as well. Let me just give this a go. I'll keep the angle below the mouth. I might raise the chin just a tiny bit over here, like this, so that it's still small. So not too much. And for the ears, I'm going to go to orthographic view and I'm going to slightly raise it, but not too much. Again, I want this distance to be shorter. So if I raise the ears too much, there's no point in what I just did. All right. So I'm going to do that. And let's take a look over here. So let me just try to raise this a bit more. I want to keep it that short and still have the angle below the mouth, which is the case over here. Let me just double check. Yeah, okay, it is the case. And this area here seems a bit too sharp, so I'm going to use Control with the Sculpt Draw brush to kind of round this area a bit, the jaw, since it's a more feminine look. Okay, let's take a look over here. That's looking good. And then I'll use the Sculpt Draw brush and kind of remove from this area here, like that. And yeah, that actually looks not so bad. Let me remove the mask to see what's going on. All right. That works. So yeah, it's always tricky to change proportions once you have everything down because you have to be careful with what you change since it changes the look of the whole character. All right, so I'm just gonna lower this a bit, go to the eyes over here. Actually, I'm gonna take this and just fix this area a bit. It's a bit too straight up here. So I'm just gonna lower this area, push it backwards. Give it a nicer, natural look. All right. Let's take a look over here. I'd like to smooth this area out as well, just a little bit. Like this. So yeah, I'm really getting into refinement right now because the proportions are globally very nice. So now it's about refining. So just looking at any weird shading, any weird areas, cleaning them up, and looking for any areas that I can improve when it comes to form. Like over here where I can add some volume. It was a bit too inwards. I could see it from the shading over here. All right. Okay, I will just use Control and just remove a bit from the nose over here Make it a bit thinner. I like the width. I'm going to keep it. I might raise the nose here a bit, or nah, I'll keep it the way it is. That's fine. I'll actually lower it down. The whole thing. Just a little bit. And straighten, not straighten, but move this around to have a nicer curve over here. Just ever so slightly. All right. And just move this around here. Again, this is pure refinement. The lips, I really like them from the front, from the side. I feel like maybe if I push them forward a bit over here, they would look better from the profile. Let's take a look. So I'm going to go backwards, forwards. Okay, yeah, so I'm keeping the change I just did. That works. It's just a slight change, but it makes the difference, at least in my eye. So I'm moving this forward here. Adding some volume over here. Over here as well. Maybe with the clay strips. And take a look at it from the side. I'm just gonna shave off actually a little bit to make it look a bit more natural. So let me just shave off from this area and then work it again. Let's take a look over here. I just go backwards here. Okay. I'm going to add volume over here as well and just work the volume around the mouth. It's not bad per se, but I know it can be improved. So maybe here as well. There you go. Yeah, add some volume over here. That works. All right, let's take a look. I think from the side over here, this is bulging out a bit too much compared to how I would like it, more like this one. And let's see, I could definitely try and move this inwards a bit. Like this, maybe use the clay strips and carve it out over here. Let me see this area. Yeah, so that's the area, okay. So this area here, I'm gonna make it a bit thinner. Like that. But I don't want to lose the form, so I'm kind of working it over here. All right, let's take a look over here. Okay. So I'm just refining, nothing new. I'm not really changing anything major or anything like that. I'm just smoothing things out, looking at any weird shading and just smooth it or add volume and just fix it from there. Okay. I'm just using Control Z sometimes to just see if the changes I did, if I like them or not. I think the jaw here was a bit too sharp, so I just smoothed it out. Let's take a look at it from below here. I want to make it look a bit more round. So I'm just moving it with the grab brush and I'm smoothing and I'm trying to create a more round appearance over here. Like that. All right, that looks cool. Maybe pull out this area here a bit. I'm taking a look at this side and I'm trying to get a nicer looking shading. Okay. Let's see from far. I'm gonna look around the sculpt over here. Maybe push this part a bit inwards. And the head as well, just a little bit. Like that. Okay, that works. And I want this angle here to be a bit more, well, a bit more like this. So it's a very, very small change, but I'm just gonna push it a bit more inwards here to have a narrower jaw. All right, looking good. So let's take a look at what I got so far. I'm gonna do, let's see, I'm gonna go to orthographic view and compare, or not compare, but look at the proportions a bit. Actually, it's not a bad idea to compare just to see the differences here. Not that I'm going for what we have over here, but let's see. So the lips are definitely thicker over here. That's what I was going for. I really like the eyes over here. Okay. The nose is nice. The ears are a little big, I think. We need to connect them and see how they look like with the head. The neck can use some improvement here. Some smoothing and some volume. But yeah, overall, she's looking really great. I definitely can improve the lips a bit. Maybe by sharpening the upper parts here a bit like that with the draw sharp and control. And yeah, just giving it some more form. In the eyes, I feel like I really like the way they are, but I want to just shape them a bit more. Maybe make this angle here a bit sharper. I think it would look cool for her. Like that. And make the angle that's going down here a bit sharper as well. And just push this whole part inwards a bit. Yeah, that's looking awesome. All right. Let me just go back. Actually, I do prefer the angle that was here before. It actually looked nicer. Both work, but yeah, I'm gonna stick to what I had. All right, so globally not bad. I'm gonna take a break. I need a break so that I can come back with a fresh look and see if I'm gonna make any changes before we move on. Okay. All right, so I'm back from a coffee break and I'm ready to tackle her. So I'm gonna leave her head like this for now. It's fine. If I need to do any changes, I'll do it later on. So let's go right ahead and sculpt the hair. Okay, so just click on this and then click on number 2. So here you can see the sculpt I did of this female head with her hair. I'm gonna go to object mode, click on her and then frame selected. So view and let's see, frame selected. And then I'll zoom in a bit like this just to see her on the side. So you can use her as reference for the hair. So here I'll create probably a similar hairstyle. We'll see. So I'm just gonna go here, Shift S, cursor to world origin, Shift A, mesh, and then UV sphere, and then Shift click this and Control L, link materials. And then I'll grab this sphere, go to edit mode and scale it a bit and put it around where her head is. All right, now I can go to sculpt mode and I can start sculpting her hair. Just make sure you turn on symmetry at first. So I'm gonna put the hair above her head. And I'm actually going to switch back to her head and just make her neck thinner over here. Like this, and the head as well. And then I'll go back to the hair. Okay, so here I will just make this go over her head for starters. All right. So since the form of her head is already done, this is not going to take a lot of time to put this over her head and have a good shape. Just gotta follow the form a bit. If you're not sure, just push it inwards. You're gonna see where the limit is and put it above it by a little. depending on the hairstyle, of course. All right, that works. I'm gonna add some volume for the hair, like this. Okay, and then I will add her hair bun. So I'm gonna duplicate this one, Shift D, right click to put it back to where it was, go to edit mode, scale it, and move it upwards on the Z axis. And I think for her, I'll make her bun over her head like this instead of on the back over here. All right, just for a different variation of this hairstyle. Okay, so here I will go ahead and make this a bit smaller and move it on the Z axis like that, maybe a little backwards like that. Okay, perfect. And then I'll go to this one here and I'll actually click on this and remove the 3D cursor and origins. It was kind of bothering me. So I'm gonna go over here, go to sculpt mode, and I'll start sculpting. I'm gonna decrease this number to increase the resolution. So I'm gonna put it at 0.03. Let's see, that works fine for now. And then I will take the clay strips and increase this to 0.7. And I'll just create some hair strands like that, going upwards toward the hair bun. All right, I'm gonna add some volume over here like that. Perfect. Okay, so in the middle over here, I'm gonna try to make it look a bit more interesting. So I will actually remove symmetry and I'll add some hair strands that are not quite straight, like this. Okay, and some of them will go above the others. And basically I'm trying to make an interesting hairstyle. So it's a good idea to remove symmetry, especially for the middle. And you can always turn it back on if you want to modify the whole thing like that. And I'm going to move this part forward, get it closer to her eye like this. And basically try to get a nice form from the front over here. Okay. Gonna raise this a bit higher. It was too close to her eyes. Let's take a look over here. That's not bad. So I think I'm gonna maybe make her head a bit... No, I'm gonna keep it like this for now. Let me continue with the hairstyle and then I'll see if I'm gonna change the head. So I'm gonna turn X symmetry on. I'm gonna work the sides over here. So with control, I can remove, and without control, I can add hair strands like this. Like that, perfect. I'm gonna turn it off over here. And as you can see, I'm working with a low poly version of it for now, just making things easier for me until I figure out the hairstyle and how I wanna do it. Let's see, I will turn the X axis on and still work the shape over here. Maybe make it a bit smaller from the bottom here. I'm not sure yet. I'm just trying to find something that suits her. Okay, I'm gonna go to this one over here. I'm gonna decrease this value to 0.05. Control R, that was actually not low enough. So 0.03, Control R, and then with the clay strips, I'll just create more hair strands. Like that. I'll probably turn the X-axis off for the middle parts here. There you go. And I'll turn the X-axis on again and raise this a bit. Like this. Okay, that's cool. That's looking cool. All right, so I'm gonna play with the idea of the hairstyle this way. I'm actually gonna go over here and decrease this to 0.02, Control R, and see if I can improve the shapes over here a bit. Maybe make another hair strand over here, pop out like that, and remove from it a bit with Control and the clay strips. So again, if you use Control, you should know that by now, but you will use the other direction of the brush. All right. I'm going to add some big hair strands, some small hair strands, and try to make things interesting. Okay. Gonna turn X on again and just continue working some forms over here. And I'm applying a lot of pressure at certain areas to add more hair and make it go above the rest and see if that works. That's globally not bad. I like that. Big hair strands like that instead of smaller ones like this one. So I'm going to turn the X-axis off and just work this hair strand here a bit. Refine it a bit, and let me just take a look over here. Let me just add some hair strands here and break the symmetry in the back as well. All right, so globally that looks actually not bad. I like that. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the head over here and probably refine her a bit. I'm gonna change her proportions ever so slightly here and there, just test it out. Maybe make this a bit thinner. Her neck a bit thinner. Her ears, I'll move it forward a bit. That's how it was. That's how it is right now. All right, that's cool. I like that. I'm gonna go back to her and let's see, just move things around a bit, just refinements. So I'm not really changing much at this point. I'm gonna smooth this area here. There you go. And try to make it look a bit more natural. So I might increase the poly count here, but actually I need to merge the ears with the head. So let me just grab the hair over here. Merge the ears with the head, Control J, like this. I'm gonna go to remesh and then 0.008, Control R. And of course I need to do symmetrize for the ears. There you go, that's cool, okay. And then I will just smooth things out and work the ears over here. All right, so we're getting closer to the end over here. Maybe smooth this area. It's looking a bit weird. All right, that's a little better. Let me take a look at it. Actually, I like how there's highlights over here. So let me actually do it a bit differently. How could I do this differently? Maybe remove from this area, from the lower area here. Like that, to make it look a bit more natural. And I might move this part backwards. This part over here. Let me just try that and see if that works. So I'm gonna mask the mouth. And basically I'm gonna move this area here backwards for her. All right, so I'm gonna mask the mouth, this area as well. I don't wanna touch it. And yeah, the rest is fine. Maybe I'll mask the nose as well. There you go. Okay, cool. So I'm going to smooth the mask. I'm going to turn this off and just move this whole area backwards a bit. All right. So by doing that, it's making some areas more flat. So I have to be a bit more selective with what I move backwards. So I just want to move this area backward. Okay. And maybe bulk this area out a bit since I made it a bit flatter. There you go. I'm just moving things outwards with the grab brush, by the way, to add back some volume over here. Because this initially was a bit too forward. It was like that. So when I moved it backwards, it made this flat, as you can see over here. And then I moved things a bit more forward from the side over here so that it's not so flat. And I'm just playing around with the form, basically. Again, it's a bit tricky because I want to keep this mouth style, but I need to fix the surroundings a bit. So I'm trying not to mess it up while doing so by mistake. All right. So I will try to add some volume over here. Let me just increase the strength to 0.35. Add some volume to the corner and remove from here. Like that. So that I don't lose the highlight over here. It's just that it wasn't exactly in the right place. Okay. Not 100% perfect, but much, much better. All right. Just gonna smooth it out a bit, maybe add some volume to this lower lip, like this. I don't have any mask, do I? Yes, I do. Okay. Alt M to remove the mask, and now I can add volume. That's why it wasn't working. All right, let's take a look over here. Maybe add some in the lower parts over here. Make it pop out a bit more because it was a bit flat. That looks a lot better. And let me just add some draw sharp over here, or I might actually go back. I'm going to take the mask brush, Ctrl-Shift-B, to just grab this upper part and mask this upper part, and then I will use, let's see, Q, smooth mask, and I will raise this area up, or use Ctrl-I to invert the mask, and just lower this area downwards, and get this crease in over here a bit more prominent, like that. I don't have the mask properly like I would want to. I'm gonna clean it up a bit, like that, and try this again. All right. Oop. Maybe lower this area here. It's a little better. Let me take a look at this. Yeah, okay, that's a little better. Ctrl-I to invert the mask so that I can move the lower part over here a bit. And whenever I move it, I'm just going to double check that I like the new position before I commit to it. Maybe try and move this forward a bit. Nah, I like it backwards like that. Ah, that's interesting. All right. Add some character. So again, I'm just moving the mouth around. I'm just trying to see if there's a better look for it. Let me just go back and see what I had before. This is what I had. And then this is what I have right now. I'm gonna smooth this area here. Okay, I kind of like that. Ctrl-I, let me just play around with the form from the side over here. Push this part inwards a bit. Like that. Okay, and now I want to see this with the hair. So, Alt-H. There you go. And yeah, that's looking pretty cool. Look at that. That's awesome. So I'm going to add her some eyelashes. So Shift-S, cursor to selected, or just cursor to world origin, simpler. And then Shift-A, mesh, UV sphere, Shift-click over here, Control-L, link material. I'm going to grab this, scale it downwards like this. And I'll put it right above her eyes. I'm going to go to, actually I'm going to put it under right here. I'm going to go to Sculpt Mode, X, and turn on Symmetry. And then with the snake hook, I'll just quickly move it around the eyes. There you go. Okay. Once I do that, I'm going to make sure to decrease the value over here to something low like 0.02. Control R, and then with the grab brush, I'll just continue playing around with the shape over here. And I'll remove from this upper part with the sculpt draw brush and control. Like that, and then I'll continue with the grab brush to just move things around and smooth it at the same time. All right. And just make her look a bit more feminine with some eyelashes over here. And I just need to find the right form for her. Over here. I'm going to push this outwards a bit. Control R for remesh, and then I'll push it backwards. I just wanted to see the end of it over here. All right, so actually I'm going to go back. It was better before. All right, it was good like this. I'm just going to move it downwards with the grab brush. So I'm trying to put it above her upper eyelids. Like that. That looks nice. Let me just adjust my seat. There you go. Oh, okay. So this is with the eyelashes. This is without. They both work. And I'm just gonna shade smooth it like that. Or just keep it the way it was. That's fine. Okay, looking good. Let me see if I can just improve it a bit. I'm gonna raise it a bit. And do that. That looks cool. I think over here I merged the eyelashes at a point with the second version over here, which I did just for this nice cool effect where it's kind of part of the eyelids, as you can see. We don't have to do that. I just wanted to mention it. Okay. So I'm just gonna take a look at her lower part of her lips over here. Smooth things out a bit. Maybe use the draw sharp brush with a low value, like 0.3. And just add this crease over here. Maybe it's a bit too much the way it is right now. I'm just gonna lower it a bit. And I want to smooth out her lower lips a bit. It's a bit too out there. And maybe add some volume over here. Like that. Make it mix up with her lower part of her mouth, basically. All right. Just smooth things out over here. Let's take a look. It's a bit more subtle. That's good. I'm gonna try the draw sharp here once again. Just a really small one, close to the lips. Like that, just to make it look a bit more interesting, and maybe add some form to the chin over here. Just add some volume. It's looking a bit flat. So it's definitely flatter than a male's chin, just not that flat. I need it to protrude outwards a bit. Like that, that's good. And make this area a bit more subtle. Okay. This is turning out to look really nice. Just gonna smooth out the lower lips a bit. And yeah, we're basically at the refinement stage. We more or less have the character done over here. So here I'm going to draw sharp with control, increase the lower parts over here. So with control, I'm pushing out the form to kind of create her eyelashes. Like that. That looks cool. All right, looking awesome. Let's take a look over here. Oh, did I forget to merge the ears or did I just not? Okay, I just didn't smooth it out. So I'm just gonna quickly smooth this area. It's fine. It's behind the head anyways. We're not really looking there, but might as well just improve it a bit. Over here. And the ears look globally fine. Alt H again. Beautiful. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with what we got over here. So I'm gonna do a quick cleanup so that we can call her done. All right, so I'm gonna go to sculpt mode over here and then maybe mask the lower part over here. So let me just use B for box mask like that. And then I'll use, let's see, Q smooth mask a few times. Control I, I'm gonna hide this and I'm gonna attempt making her lips closer to her nose like that. Let's see, just raise this whole part up. Just not too much. Maybe raise the chin a bit more. This area here. Like this. Let's take a look. Okay, and raise her neck as well. All right. So I just want to raise her upper lips more than her lower lips, like this. And get an interesting look like that. Okay. So it's just a small change. It doesn't really change that much, but I thought it would look a bit more interesting to do it that way. There you go. That looks kind of cool. Let me just zoom out over here. I'm going to Control Z to see what it looked like before. So it looked like this, and I thought this area looked a little big because the lips were big, but the distance between the lips and the nose were, for example, just as big as this one, even though her lips are smaller. And this is why it makes this whole area bigger than it should be. So by getting it closer, I was able to raise the chin and just play around with the proportions to have the lips still big, but have this area a bit smaller. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's take a look over here. I would like to work the hair a bit. All right, so I'm gonna hide the hair and I just wanna see her head with the change that I did. Kind of like that this is popping out like that, the skull. I can't move it because I think I have mask on. All right, so I'm going to remove the mask with Alt M and continue to move the head. So I like that it's popping out, but I'm going to just make it a bit more subtle like that. Okay, maybe make the ears smaller. Okay. I'm going to go to orthographic view, just take a look at her overall. Let me see what happens if I raise this a bit like that. That kind of looks interesting. All right, raise her eyebrows a bit. Okay, that's nice. I'm going to keep it that way. And maybe play around with the form of her lips while keeping it the same. So I'm going to take, let's see, the draw brush, the sculpt draw brush, and put it at 0.2. I don't want to change this too much. Actually, I want to raise this part here. There you go, just a little bit. So this part, again, it's a little ridge over here. Like that. I did do that earlier when I was sculpting her, but for some reason, at a point, I think I messed it up. So I'm just putting it back in, adding some sculpt draw over here, and that looks nice. Maybe I'll add some form over here and keep the middle a bit empty like that for this shape. This is something you see some people have like that. That makes the lips a bit more interesting in my opinion. Looking nice. Ooh, I like that. Okay. Beautiful. And I'll just try to make the lips look a bit more interesting by just playing around with the shape a bit over here. Maybe crease in this area here, smooth it out a bit, and it will make this area look like it's popping outwards like that. Let me just go back, make sure I got it right, which I did. You can see we can see this part a bit more because of the crease. So that looks nice. Okay. Let me work her neck a bit, actually. Now that we're here. Might as well. All right, that looks okay. Let me just go back. Okay, that works. I'm just gonna add some volume over here. And smooth things out. All right. Just cleaning this area up a bit. And taking a look at her from all sides again, just doing some cleanup, nothing fancy, nothing new, and not changing the style over here. As for the nose, I'm happy with it the way it is. I'm just gonna move it a bit and just slightly improve the form. That's it. I'm keeping the shape. And I'm making it maybe a bit thinner over here. Like that. And maybe play around with the form of the nostrils just a tiny bit. Okay, that looks cool. The eyes look really nice. I like the expression. And I'm quite happy with this. Okay. So I'm going to unhide the hair and take a look at her over here. All right, so I'm going to go to the hair over here and refine it a bit. So I'm going to go to Sculpt Mode, Remesh, and 0.008, and then Control R, and I'll just smooth it out a bit. All right, so I'm going to smooth this area here. Let's see, maybe I'll decrease it a bit, 0.006, Control R, and then once I smooth it, I'll actually put it back down. So I'm just going to refine it at a higher resolution like that, and then I'll put it back down to kind of clean it up. All right, so I'm going to go to clay strips here. I'll decrease the strength to 0.3 and just smooth it here, maybe on the side over here separately. So I really like these big hair strands. I don't want to get rid of that or mess it up while I'm cleaning things up. So I gotta be careful with that. All right, let me just stay a bit further like this and continue working at it from this distance. Okay, I'm gonna smooth it here. Maybe create a draw sharp over here as well. Like that. And just try to make it a bit more interesting while still keeping really big hair strands like this, contrary to what we have over here. So it's a different style. I really like it as well. So I'm going to go for it for this sculpt. I'm going to add some volume over here like that. All right. Just make it look a bit nicer. There you go. I want to refine these weird areas, just smooth them out, then add some clay. Do the same over here. And actually, I'm going to turn on symmetry. Let me find the place where there's symmetry. I think it's around over here. All right, so I'll just do this lower area first, and then I'll go back up. All right. So I'm just gonna continue doing the same thing for all hair strands. I don't really have to do every single hair strand. I just need to get the idea across. That's it. And hint the hair so that I can get a nice sculpt-like look for the hair, which is what I'm going for. All right, so with control, I can kind of carve this area and create different plane changes over here for an interesting look. For example, I can go over here and remove the x-axis and then use control, carve in this area here, and then refine it, smooth it out like this. It's as if the hair is coming from down over here and then going back like that. I'm gonna smooth the transition a bit, and I'll do the same over here. There you go. All right, that looks cool. I'm just gonna smooth this area and smooth all of these jagged areas and refine them later on. Let me just do that right away. And then I will just sculpt over these areas again, just to have a nicer, sharper look with this high-res version. So yeah, this way you can see a lot of different techniques to sculpt. I try to show you as many as I can with the male and female sculpts. Different ways to sculpt the hair, different ways to sculpt the face, modify the face and all of that. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is to practice, 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 enjoy the process, continue practicing and learn from every time you sculpt. Try to consciously learn. Okay, so clay strips again. I'm gonna clean this weird part here, make it look a little nicer. Don't forget, we're gonna lower later on the poly counts so that we get a more manageable hair, and so that we can then later on just clean it up really fast and keep it sculpt-like. I'm not really going for a very high-res hair like this, but you'll see what I mean once I lower it. So I'm just going to create some hair strands here and there. Again, I want to keep the big hair strands, but I want to mix it in with a few small ones here and there. And maybe add some with the sculpt draw brush like this. I'm going to increase it to 0.4 and give that a try. So just going to add some hair strands here and there like that. No, I like that squarish look that it has over here. I'm going to keep it the way it is. Okay. Just adding more hair here. Gonna smooth it out in the back as well. And I'll continue to just refine this area. I'll remove the X-symmetry, work this hair. Again, I'm just following the same hair strands that I already created earlier. These are not new hair strands. All right, that looks good. Maybe fix this area over here. I'm just gonna fill it up like that. Okay, and this area here is looking a bit weird, so let me just rework it. All right, this is looking awesome. I like that. I want to work this big one here. Just reiterate this big one going over the others. I like that. Okay, that's looking awesome. So here, actually before I do that, let me just do some creasing over here. Actually, I need to go back and turn on X-symmetry for this one, just so that it does it on both sides and so that I don't have to go over there and do it as well. All right, okay, cool. So I'm gonna go here, go to remesh, put it at 0.01. Let's try that. Control R. That is fine. We could work with this. Let me try a lower number. 0.02. Control R. That works too. I'm going to go with 0.01. So once you do that, it's easier to manage. So here I can turn off the X-symmetry and I can work any weird area. Let's take a look over here. For example, this one. Oop, just move it a bit. And I can use the sculpt draw brush to kind of push it outwards if I need to. I'm going to put this at 0.2 so that it's very, very subtle. And just get a nicer hair form all over. Here as well. Let me just smooth this out. So yeah, that's a little trick to go up high in the resolution, clean things up, and then go back down and continue cleaning them up. And I can continue, of course, creating different forms here at this resolution, like this. And you'll notice I'm not always like creating sharp hair strands like that. I'm kind of mixing things up. For example, here it's a little bit connected, and here there is more crease, and yeah, it makes it a bit more interesting. I'm gonna turn X symmetry on, maybe add some crease over here, like that. That was good without it. I will add a crease over here though. All right. And maybe some more clay strips over here. Okay, that's good. And let me take a look at this area here. I'm just gonna use the grab brush to kind of clean it up. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's definitely much better than it was. And I'm just going for something like this. That looks nice. I definitely want to go ahead and work this part, but actually just let me do this one over here really quick. Yeah, a little better. All right, so I'm going to go over here. I kind of like the form of it. I'm going to keep that. So I'm just going to do something similar, 0.008. Just smooth it out all over. That's fine. Like that. And then I'm going to go and remove X symmetry and just reiterate the shapes that I originally created. Like this. As you can see. And yeah. And then I'll lower the poly count again, and I'll just kind of clean things up. Look at that. That looks really, really cool. All right. I'm going to go with the draw sharp, add some creases here and there. Let's see, maybe over here. Add this little hair strand. Here as well. Maybe here. Yeah, that looks nice. Okay, so I'm going to keep it like this. Actually, maybe I will push this area out a bit more. Like that. Okay, that looks nicer. I like that a lot. So I can keep it the way it is, or I can just go down a bit to 0.01. Let's see if that works. Just to keep it close to this one. It was pretty fine the way it was actually. So I went back, I kept it at 0.008. Don't forget, it's not the same size as this one, so it's already low enough for me at this point, the resolution. So I'm gonna keep it like this and just keep it as it is. I'm gonna go back to this one. There's this little weird shading over here. I don't like that, so I'm gonna fix that. Okay, and maybe add some volume here. Beautiful. Nice. Let's take a look. All right, cool. So at this point, you can always merge the hair with the head and clean up these edges. I'm not going to bother with that. I already did it over here. So it's not really that difficult. You just click on this, shift click on this, Control J, and then remesh at a high value. And then you kind of smooth in whatever is in between. And just to quickly demonstrate, I'm going to do it and then do Control Z. So I'll take the hair, this one, Control J, go to sculpt mode. And then I'll just remesh it right now. So Control R, and you can see it's already looking a lot more natural. And then you can kind of smooth these areas or use the clay strips and add some hair strands like that. And yeah, you get the point. All right, so I'm gonna go back and go to the head over here. And I'm more interested in just quickly refining the head before I call this done. So I'm gonna go to sculpt mode and I will increase the smooth brush to 0.85, why not? And I'll smooth the neck here a bit, like that. That's a lot better. It was kind of bothering me. Okay, and maybe make the shape a bit more interesting. All right, so I'm just gonna pull this area outwards like that, just part of it. All right. Looking good. Let me just take a look at it from here, make it a bit less flat. I'll just use the clay strips over here, shave off from here to make it a bit more round. All right. So even though we have the sternocleidomastoid, I want to keep it subtle, so I'm kind of smoothing it out. I'm sculpting it, but then smoothing it out a bit to get a nice subtle look. All right. Let's see what we got over here. I think that looks better than it did before. It looks nice, it looks smooth. Of course, it's just the neck, it's not a big deal, but yeah. Okay. What is this? There's this orange thing. I'm betting it's just some weird vertex, so by using Ctrl R, I'm able to remove it by remeshing like this. But instead, I'm gonna go to edit mode and just delete it like that, because I don't want to remesh and rework the mouth area and all of that. So I'm going to continue working right now. I'm going to go to sculpt mode. Maybe, let's see. Maybe push the neck forward a bit over here. Like that. Okay, and I'm going to push the head inwards here. And the neck downwards a bit more. Okay, perfect. Let's see. I'm gonna hide the hair just so that I can finish working the head a bit. All right. I'm just working the skull over here. And maybe just push this part a bit forward. I'm going to go to orthographic view, just look at the proportions all over. And also decrease the smooth brush strength to 0.3, just in case. I don't want to smooth the face and end up losing all the details. All right, so I'm just going to slowly look at the sculpt here and there and just try to make changes here and there that will improve the sculpt without changing it too much, of course. All right. Okay, that looks a little better. Let's take a look. I still feel like the neck looks a bit flat. So I want to make it look subtle, but not too flat. So I'm just, again, shaving in some areas here and then smoothing again like this. Let me just go back a bit and see the difference. All right. Okay, that's good. And for the face, I feel like this area here can definitely use some improvements. I'm gonna kind of dig in and carve from this area to push it upwards a bit. smooth things out. All right, I'm gonna go back to perspective mode, unhide the hair, and yeah, look at that. So again, I didn't really change the face or anything like that. I just simply smoothed some areas out and just played around with the form a bit to have something a bit nicer. Awesome. Okay, so just a little bit more tweaking and we can call it done. So looking at her from the side, the position of the neck is not that good. I want to push it backwards a bit. So I'm just going to use Control-Shift-B, take this whole area, and then actually I'll take a bit more. So Control-Shift-B, I'll take this area over here, like that. Control-I, I will smooth the mask a few times. And just move it backwards and it's gonna look a lot better. Like that. Alright, so I'm just gonna play around with the form of the neck. I think that's the only last thing I wanna do before calling her done. I will go to the smooth brush, increase it to 0.8 so that I can actually do something with it at this point. So yeah, it's definitely a lot better with the neck backwards like that. It was a bit too forward and it looked weird. So if you ever have doubts about anything, always go ahead and look for reference to double check how it's supposed to look like. Or just simply take a break, come back. Sometimes you'll just notice mistakes you didn't notice before. That's all. Okay. Let's take a look over here. Maybe move this backwards a bit, like that. I'm gonna use Alt-M and just work this area a bit. And while doing that, I saw another orange point here. Seems to be a lost vertex. So, yep, I'm just gonna grab it, delete it, and that's fine. All right, so I'm just lowering the skull a bit over here and making it a bit more natural with the rest of the neck. Just gonna smooth things out. And look at that, it looks a lot better. All right. The neck was definitely bothering me, so now I know why. All right, so I'm gonna smooth this area here. Okay, look at that. We have a nice looking sculpt over here. A lot of character, a nice style. I really love the lips over here. Let's see, maybe if I go to the smooth brush and put it at 0.3, let me see if I can improve this area just a bit, nothing crazy. All right. That's what it looked like. It was going in a bit too much. You can see from the shading, and I just added some volume here. So yeah, you can always go back and improve your work for sure. But for this one, I think I'm gonna call her done. All right, let me just add her hair again and take a look at what we got over here. So I'm just gonna rotate a bit. Yeah, beautiful. You know what? We got her to this point. Might as well join the hair to the head and just show you how I would do it. Yeah, what I'm gonna do over here is actually duplicate her and keep two versions of her. So this one over here, I'll use Shift-D and then M, new collection, and call her, let's see, female head tutorial V01. There you go. I'm gonna hide this, and then I will click on this and shift click on this, and then I'll join this. So Control J, and then go to sculpt mode. I'll go to remesh. I'm gonna go to the voxel size, put it at 0.006, and Control R. So a high enough number to join all of this. And then I'll go ahead and just smooth this area out and clean it up. So I'm gonna turn off X symmetry for this front part, and I'll just smooth it out a bit. Actually, I'll smooth it with the X symmetry over here, like this, just a bit on all sides over here, like that, perfect. And then I'll remove X symmetry, and I'll just add a few clay strips over here, like that, and make it look a bit more interesting, as if the hair is coming out of the head, you know? Again, you want to be subtle with this. You don't have to overdo it. You don't have to add every hair strand. Just a few here and there, and it will sell it very well. So I like it because it has this clay sculpting effect, as if it's part of the head. I really like that. All right. Just don't want to end up making it worse. So I'm just being very, very subtle about these changes. All right. So I don't like what I did here. Let me just go back and try this again. That's a little better. Again, just be subtle. I want to improve this area over here. I'm going to turn on the X symmetry and just work this area. Nice and slow. Like that. Let me try to use the Sculpt Draw Brush to add some volume here and there, like this. Okay. Maybe over here as well, just add some volume, fill up this weird shading. All right. And I can use the Draw Sharp to add some hair strands here or just some separations. Like this, okay. Let's take a look over here. I'm gonna smooth this one a bit, just the corners. And look at that, it looks a lot better just by joining this at the end. That looks nice. I'm really loving this. All right. Perfect. All right, awesome, we're done. So first of all, I'm very proud of you for getting to this point. I know that sculpting heads is very difficult, and also sculpting female heads, in my opinion, is even more difficult than male heads. So getting to this point by itself is a challenge, and kudos to you for getting to this point. So whether you're happy with your results or not, as I've mentioned before, it doesn't really matter. What's important is with every practice, with every sculpt, you're getting better. Don't forget that. So enjoy the process. Don't get frustrated no matter what result you get. It's an enjoyable thing to sculpt. It's very relaxing if you do it right. So yeah, just take it easy, keep on sculpting, and keep on improving.